Could everyone take a seat? Citizens, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, March 2nd, 2020, to order. Tonight we have Reverend Kim. Would you like to come up here, sir, and lead us in prayer?
Let us pray. Almighty and eternal God, thank you for life and health and strength, your mercy, your love, and your grace. Thank you for this great city. And I thank you for these leaders, these ones who serve and give so much of their time. I pray that you would bless them tonight, that you would give them wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this city. We thank you for our city and for the influence that it has on the Gulf Coast, and we ask you to continue to bless us, for we pray it in the name of Christ. Amen. Amen.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. I sure wish I'd see a crowd like this every Monday City Council meeting, because that would show a great concern our citizens have with the betterment of our community. But I'm sure glad you all are here tonight on this night. We're going to go ahead and start tonight with agenda approval, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a change.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead and if we could move item 5 up above the city manager's report.
Council members?
Second.
We got a second?
I'd like to add an amendment as well. I'd like to move the pickleball court,
3B.
which was F1, and I'd like to make it 3B, possibly before. I'd prefer it to be before the right-of-way. I believe it'll be quick, and we can handle that one fairly quickly without. I have a feeling that the right-of-way acquisition issue will take a while.
So we have those two changes. We have a motion and a second to that. Oh, we need a second to his.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? So moved. So your item, Councilman Destin, will be moved to 3B, and the public hearing, 5A, will be moved before the city manager's report. So it'll be after 3B. We'll make it 3C. All right, we got approval of the minutes of February 3rd, 2020, regular city council meeting.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
I have a motion.
Second.
A second. Any discussion? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved. We got a proclamation of the Mattie Kelly Arts Foundation 25th anniversary celebration. Any board members? Hello, hello. Get on both sides of me, and I'll go ahead and read this. And we'll do a photo op afterwards. Catherine didn't bring her expensive phone, so I can't break it. City of Destin proclamation recognizing the 25th year anniversary of the Mattie Kelly Arts Foundation. Whereas the Mattie Kelly Arts Foundation was formed in 1995 as a 501c3, not-for-profit charitable arts organization, it was founded on the cultural, educational, and spiritual beliefs of the late Destin matriarch, Mattie Kelly. And whereas, throughout her life, Mattie pursued dreams that brought not only progress to Destin, but educational, spiritual, and cultural opportunities that Destin still embraces today. And whereas recognized as one of Northwest Florida's premier art organizations, the Mattie Kelly Arts Foundation, owner and operator of the Mattie Kelly Cultural Arts Village, is known for its outdoor concerts, arts festivals, cultural events, and providing valuable arts education programs serving underserved populations. And whereas the Mattie Kelly Arts Foundation established an award-winning arts education program recognized by the Florida Department of Education with the Florida Commissioner of Education awards of distinctions for its commitment to inspiring children through the literacy, performing, and visual arts. And whereas Mattie Kelly Arts Foundation community outreach initiatives have impacted over 335,000 children and adults, continued a presence in 71 schools and agencies, serving K through 12 students, at-risk youth, adults, and children with special needs, and active veteran military suffering with visible and invisible injuries through transformational art education curriculum and interactive experiences. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Mayor and the City Council that March 12, 2020 commemorates the 108th birthday of Mattie Kelly and be recognized as Mattie Kelly Day, recognizing 25 years of success. And we call upon its citizens to recognize the Foundation's 25 years of service, enhancing the quality of life in our community, reinforcing the cultural opportunities provided to schools, special needs and disabled military veterans, and other institutions of learning, and providing a continued source of enjoyment, cultural enrichment for all ages and abilities. So done the second day of March 2020 by me. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys. You do a wonderful job for our community.
Thank you.
Big smile.
Fish. Stinky fish.
1, 2, 3.
And we invite you all out to come March 12th to the Mattie Kelly Cultural Arts Village at 10 a.m. For a little celebration. We have our own Destin Middle School Jazz Band that we're giving them a venue and opportunity to perform, so please come out and join us in the celebration. Thank you so much.
At this portion of the meeting is public comments on agenda items that are not public hearings. If you are here for item 5A, which is now 3C, on the right-of-way issue, hold your comments. We'll have the public hearing portion. You can speak then. This portion is for any other item on the agenda or anything that concerns you that you would like to talk about. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I'll try to hold you to that. If you go a little longer, I'll politely ask you to wrap up your thoughts. If you have anything that you want to hand in for the public record, hand it to our city clerk, Ray. This is for public comment, not displays or presentations. With that being said, I'll just call the first person I have, and then after that, I'll just look out in the audience and you raise your hand, I'll recognize you, and we'll just come up until everybody's had their say, and then we'll move on to the other parts of our meeting. So first up is Captain Nikki Harvell. Just state your name and your address and have at it.
Hold it. My name is Nikki Harvell. I live at 118 Country Club Drive West in Indian Bayou. Coming to you to ask the city to provide small boat captains a place to operate out of. The harbor's become pretty overcrowded with pontoon boats and jet skis, and the few places that do offer us a place to work, they charge a pretty penny. I'm not asking anything to be provided for free, but those spots are limited. I believe Harbor Walk only offers it to 8 boats. I think we have now, with the addition of the cement plant, plans for the 17th public park in the city, none of which allow any commercial activity, whether it be permanent or just come and go pick up passengers. I'm asking for either change in that policy or for the city to provide the small boat captains a place to operate and provide for their families.
Go ahead.
Captain Harville, how many small boats, captains like yourself, would you estimate there are?
That operate out of our pass? Over 100.
Right. A lot of them are struggling to find any sort of place to port out of, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. City Manager, if you could have this issue placed for discussion under my name for the next meeting, and we'll discuss it at that time, and we'll have a robust discussion. We'll see what latitude we have with redesigning and potentially tweaking, because I do believe we're going to have to, in the long term, seek permanent solutions, likely through the city, for preservation of slips for your industry. It's changed so much, and we can't lose that part of our heritage. So let's have that discussion, and I'll be happy to sponsor that, and we can talk about it at the next regular scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And when you see it on the agenda too, Dickie, I think rallying the troops to come and give public comment on the record will enhance that discussion.
Okay.
Okay?
I think now that it's going to be on the agenda might motivate them a little more to show up.
Okay, you got it. Any other comments from council members?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to look in the audience. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss that's on the agenda or not on the agenda other than our public hearings? Mum's the word. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close this portion of the meeting. Oh, come on, step on up. It's a little crowded, so you got to raise your hands a little higher. You're going to talk about dog park, right?
That's right. Good to see everybody again. I'll be real quick. I just had a question and a comment. Fort Walton Beach City used a $30,000 community block grant to help build their 6 pickleball courts. And this is a federal program which provides communities with this type of money. Is there anyone in the government of Destin who is now in charge of applying for these types of grants?
Yes, in fact, did he come online today? His first day is today on the job. We've looked long and hard for that gentleman, and you get to wear him out first.
Okay, well, he can start writing that grant right now. It's community block grants, but, all right, well, that answers that question. So
Go ahead.
Welcome aboard. And I just want to mention that they approved their grant December 19th, and their 6 brand-new courts open this Thursday at 10 a.m. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
I got invited to come, so I'll see you there.
Okay, I'll be there. Okay, thanks a lot.
Does anyone else in the audience have anything they'd like to share that's on their mind? On the agenda or not on the agenda? Seeing none, I am going to close this portion of the meeting, and we will move right into Councilman Destin's issue 3B, pickleball. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Quickly, by just a show of hands, in the crowd, how many of you came for pickleball? All right. Okay, fantastic. All right, great. Okay, so that's really exciting. And she brought a racket.
Is that to hit you with, sir?
Yeah, well, hopefully if it goes my way, she won't have to. So that's very exciting and encouraging. So what I suggested at the last meeting was for us to restart the conversation about the expansion of pickleball courts within the city of Destin that we were having during our previous budget cycle last spring. We left talking about 4 new courts over in the corner of the dog park area next to the drainage swale. So it wouldn't be a reduction, I don't believe, of any of the dog park areas, but it is a grassy area that we could convert. At the time, I believe we discussed the pros and cons of whether or not an outdoor court would be used as much as an indoor court, the costs of an outdoor court versus an indoor court, which of course indoors are far more expensive. However, it's clear now that there is significant demand to use any pickle court, be it outside or inside. And to that extent, I know that we have not budgeted it within this cycle to continue down the road of breaking ground and putting those pickleball courts in. But if it pleases the council, I'd like to make a motion to make a budget amendment to fund the expansion of 4 more pickleball courts over in the corner of our dog park.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second.
And so since we've got that, we can now have the discussion on it. What I'd like to do is perhaps hand it over to the city manager or his designee to sort of describe exactly what it may cost and what it also may look like. And long-term, I know that this is going to be piecemeal. The grant, we're going to get as many grants as we can to continue expansion past this point, in my opinion. But we got to start and get you courts as quick as we can. So I'd like to get us started tomorrow, if it's possible. And at that point, we'll, in the next budget cycle, which is going to be this spring, we're going to talk about putting a pole barn over it, which is the cheapest way to get you a roof, because it's rainy and crummy in the wintertime when the highest demand for these courts occur. In shade in the summer. But I think we'll be able to get you some courts sooner than later. Lance?
I think if memory serves, the cost for an individual court is between 30 and 40,000, but as you go up, it gets less and less per court. So I mean, in the $80,000 range, I think we're getting pretty close, excluding the roof, and we could do the roof as phase 2 in the next year. I think that'd get us pretty close.
I believe last year we had talked about this, and y'all had actually pulled and gathered some numbers for us to consider. So that may save some time and a research effort if you've already got that legwork done and it's there. We didn't pass it for this budget because there was another emergency issue that had arisen, but that legwork should be in place.
Would Ms. Firth, would you like to weigh in? I mean, because you were involved with that aspect of the pickleball courts. How that fits into your organization?
Yes. Good evening. Pickleball courts, yes, we did look into that. It was about $40,000 for one, and as city manager said, you know, to add more, we'd probably be getting up to about $80,000. And we do have the pickleball going on right now for, you know, we don't have enough courts for January and February during snowbirds. We do have the gym at the community center that we have 3 courts at, you know, all through the year, 2 courts at Buck Destin, and now we're going to be looking at the church, you know, what's going to happen there, because we do have, you know, big time play over there.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I think I may want to specify my motion to make sure that, and hopefully Steve will continue to be a second. What I'd like to do is, my understanding is 1 court is not going to be enough. I know that the way that pickleball is played with you guys, it's oftentimes a community sport where round robins, multiple, and it's a tournament style, and you have to have more than 1 court and play at a time. So my suggestion is, I would like to make a motion, I'd like to amend my original motion to direct staff to determine whether we can do it in-house or whether or not we can get some quotes for the construction of 4 courts, at which point, at the next meeting, bring us those 2 options with a prepared budget amendment for either, and we will get this ball rolling.
Absolutely. We'll have it for you at the next meeting.
Do we need to do that with a motion? I mean, you just kind of just gave them a little clarification on how to execute it. Okay. So we're going to go with motion. You still second it?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Braden.
Did we not, last year, convert the courts or put in the budget for the courts on Legion Drive, the tennis courts? They have been converted. So we have 2 courts, 4 courts over there?
There are 2 tennis courts, and so there are 4 pickleball courts within those 2 tennis courts.
Okay, thank you.
No, 2 pickleball courts at Buck.
We stand corrected. 2.
Okay, thank you.
And they're used in competition with our tennis playing folks, right? Okay. All right. So is there any further comment? We have a motion. We have a second. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take this to a vote. The vote is unanimous. So moved.
We'll have you some courts real soon.
It's just, it's only 15 minutes in. I'll tell you what, we're just going to take a 5-minute break real quick. That'll allow our friends in the pickleball ball arena to exit gracefully if they so choose. And we have a bunch of standing room only, so maybe they can utilize those seats. Now, pickleballers, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we do want to give you an opportunity. All right, so we're going to take a quick 4-minute break. Everyone take a seat, please. We'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Lay down a couple ground rules because we have a lot of people that want to share their thoughts with us. One is, it's 3 minutes of public comment. And what I really encourage everyone to do is if somebody has pretty much said what you have already said, you're more than welcome to come up, state your name and your address for the public record, and just say, I agree with everything that Mr. So-and-so just said. And then you can sit down. If you have anything to add to what they say, we'll add to his comments. Just say, I agree with everything he said, but I'd like to also point out whatever it is. I'm going to hold everybody to 3 minutes because there are so many people here. And if you have any documents at all that you want introduced into the public record, just after you speak, hand them to Ray. We're not going to pass them out and all that kind of stuff. It's just too much going on tonight. And we're not going to look at them up here because we're going to be listening to the speakers anyways. So when you come up, state your name, your address, make your points. At the end of 3 minutes, I'll politely let you know that you're done. And then we'll move on to the next person. So I want everything to be civil. And I want the discourse to be informational for the council members to make the best decision possible. But more importantly, when you're addressing your comments, I want you to address it to the mayor and the council. Not to Gary, not to Parker, the mayor and the council. I don't want anybody turning around and looking in the audience. You address us, because that's who you're talking to. You're talking to me, and you're talking to these council members. So with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and read off the blue cards, and when I come to the end, which there's only 4 or 5, and I know there's a lot more than 5 people that want to speak, I'll just start looking at the audience and recognize you, and we'll just do a one-on-one, and we'll give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts. So at this point, before we get into the public hearing portion, I'm going to turn, this is a quasi-judicial event, so I'm going to turn it over to our city attorney, Mr. Bowman. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, we have item 3C, the first reading of ordinance number 20-07-CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for abandonment of a meandering portion of Harbor Lane right-of-way, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Council, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, you must base your decision tonight on the evidence as it is presented tonight. I would ask at this time that, starting with Councilmember Braden, you begin disclosing any ex parte communications you may have had. Councilmember Braden?
I've spoken with the applicant, and I'd venture to guess to say 100+ residents of Destin. Couldn't tell you what all that the conversation was about, but it was definitely about the vacation of this right away.
Thank you. Councilmember Ramswell?
Thank you. Yes, I met with the applicant last year, I believe it was, and as well as Ms. Trammell last year. I have also read and responded to multiple emails and done my own research.
Thank you. Councilmember Minshell?
Yes, sir. I have received quite a few, I don't know how many, emails from the citizens, both pro and against thing, and I received one phone call from Ms. Trammell.
Thank you. Councilmember Overdyer?
Yes, I've had communications with both Tim Kruger and Sandy Trammell. I met both of them at the property and walked through the property with them and listened to their comments.
You, Councilmember Marler?
I've also had conversations with the applicant and also with several citizens back and forth on the pros and the cons.
Mayor Jarvis?
Ditto here. I've spoken with Mr. Kruger, with Ms. Trammell. I live in the same neighborhood, so I've spoken with many of my neighbors, and I've read all the emails that we received in the last 2 weeks.
And Councilmember Destin?
I have not spoken with the applicant. However, I have spoken with several dozen members of the general public discussing the pros and cons.
Thank you. At this time, what I'd like to do is everybody that plans on testifying tonight, including Mr. and Ms. Kruger, if you plan on testifying, Joe Bodie and Lauren Witt with staff, if you plan on testifying, and any member of the public, if you plan on testifying, I'd ask that you please stand and raise your right hand. I need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to provide is the truth? Thank you. Members of the public, when you come to the microphone, please clearly state your name and address for the record. And if you have not been sworn in, please let me know and I can swear you in at that time. Thank you. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Kopp.
Thank you. I would just like to go down through council one more time and ask them, notwithstanding any communications they had, if they can remain unbiased and base their decisions on the evidence tonight, starting with Councilmember Braden.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
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 Thank you. I would like to first introduce the entire staff report prepared by city staff into the record as the city's Exhibit A.
Mr. Ketcherson, do you have any objection to that?
Okay, and we're going to allow staff to proceed first, and then after staff, the applicant does wish to speak. So I will turn it over to Mr. Joe Bodie to give you all an overview of the application that the city received. And again, it is an applicant-initiated application.
Good evening. This application for vacation of right-of-way at 604 Harbor Lane, application name VROW 2001 and proposed ordinance number 2007CN. The application is for a meandering segment of Harbor Lane right-of-way in front of 604 Harbor Lane, consisting of 2,001.4 square feet of the Harbor Lane right-of-way. The application materials provided in your packets meet the Land Development Code requirements for Article 8.01.00D, which requires a completed application to include proof of ownership of the adjacent property, an agent affidavit, a signed and sealed boundary survey of the right-of-way requested to be vacated, right-of-way ownership and encumbrance report with all attachments, list of abutting property owners within 300 feet of the proposed vacation, utility approval or clearance letters, and an application fee. There was a previous application, VROW 18-01, by this applicant for a similar size area, was applied for in April 2018. The proposed area was larger, exactly 2,511.76 square feet. This application went to the LPA on June 21, 2018. The LPA did not gain consensus with a 3-3 tie. The applicant did not wish to move forward to City Council at that time. After a year, the application was deemed withdrawn. This slide shows the approximate area proposed to be vacated under this current application and dimensions of Harbor Lane right-of-way if the proposed application is approved. This slide is page 2 of the boundary survey. The dark lines represent the proposed area to be vacated. The driveway will be relocated into the vacated area should the vacation pass. The slide shows the public right-of-way. Harbor Lane is right-of-way that was dedicated by Joe's Bayou First Edition subdivision plat in 1939. The LPA recommendation is based off of 4 items outlined in the Land Development Code, Article 8.01.00D2. The LPA made a recommendation for approval to vacate a portion of Harbor Lane right-of-way strictly based on the findings of all 4 criteria being met. The motion passed 4-2. The application is being brought forward to you for your consideration with 2 possible motions attached. Thank you.
Do you have any questions of staff?
No.
Mr. Ketcherson, do you have any questions of staff? At this time, would you like to make your presentation then? Yes, sir. Okay.
Council members, Mayor, for those of you that do not know me, my name is William Ketcherson. I am with the law firm of Ward and Ketcherson here in Destin, and I represent the applicant in this petition for a partial vacation of the right-of-way list that is on Harbor Lane in Destin. And we are here tonight to ask for you to approve that partial vacation for Mr. Kruger. I'm going to attempt, to the best of my ability, to give you a factual summation of what we proposed, and I'm going to attempt to address some of the comments that you're going to hear from the great number of folks that have showed up here tonight, both in support and opposition of our petition. And I welcome any questions that any of you have, either during my presentation or at the close of my presentation. And I promise I'm going to try to keep it relatively short so that I don't put you to sleep, because you're going to have a whole lot of folks speaking after me. As you heard from staff, there was a previous application made to the City of Destin for a vacation of the right-of-way located on Harbor Lane. Back in 2018, that went to LPA. It ended in a 3-3. And at that point, Mr. Kruger decided not to proceed forward, retain my services, and we went to work with your city staff and with the public to the best of our ability to come up with a solution that would be supported by the public. And we thought we had done that. Obviously, that is not going to turn out to be entirely the case tonight, but Mr. Kruger has spent a lot of time and money trying to come up with a solution that was acceptable to the public here in Destin for a partial vacation of the right-of-way that would accommodate his needs. I do want to give you a little bit of history. So, Mr. Kruger purchased the subject property from Miss Allen in May of 2016, and that is about the fourth slide in my presentation there. And the reason that this is relevant is one of the things you're going to hear tonight is Mr. Kruger should have known when he bought this property that he did not have the ability to put a fence or a gate, or that he was buying a landlocked piece of property. Well, the fact is, at the time Mr. Kruger bought this property, this permit was existing from the City of Destin, and this permit allows for the construction of a driveway. Now, that driveway does exist today. It is there. Our proposal is going to relocate that driveway south. But the problem we have here is, the one thing I think everybody in this room agrees on is that Mr. Kruger must be allowed access to his property, and the city must provide that. Now, does that mean exclusive access? Unfortunately, not necessarily. What it does mean is reasonable access. And a lot of the questions that were posed at LPA were, okay, well, can we not simply, let's see if this works, have Mr. Kruger put a gate at the edge of his property line at the end of the driveway? Theoretically, that might work, except that ever since Mr. Kruger installed the paver driveway with the city's permission, it has become a virtual parking lot for folks that are coming down to enjoy the public right-of-way access. And is it reasonable for Mr. or Ms. Kruger to have to go find whoever may be down at the waterfront, whether they're fishing, whether they brought a kayak down there and they went out to Crab Island? Is it reasonable for him to have to go track those folks down to get in and out of his own driveway at all hours of the day and night? I pared them down substantially, but I have over 100 photographs of people parked in the driveway as it exists today. And I've only included 4 or 5 photos, but they are at varying times of the day and night. But the point is, everybody has to have a right to get in and out of their property. And is it reasonable for the city to say, hey, we let you put a driveway there, now you're on your own? Our proposition to you is no, it's not. And we've worked with the city. The city has installed no parking. At the beginning of Harbor Lane, there is a sign that says it's a dead end, no turnaround. Down by the right-of-way entrance itself, there is a no parking, tow-away zone sign. But does Mr. Kruger really, at 6:30 in the morning or 7 a.m., have to sit there and call a tow company or the sheriff's office to get out of his driveway to go to work? I would tell you I don't think that's reasonable. But the city has tried numerous things, and when I say the city, I mean your staff, has tried numerous things to try to curtail the parking there, which, by the way, is prohibited by your own ordinances. There is no vehicular traffic allowed in a city right-of-way. So the other thing that has recently come to light is that the installation of a fence and gate could become a safety issue. Well, your own ordinances, again, say that public access is from dawn till dusk. So folks should not be in there past sunset anyway. So even if it caused a safety concern, which I would tell you is not a legitimate proposition here, but if it did, the people shouldn't be in there anyway, because your sign that says Joe's Bayou Public Access says from dawn till dusk. It's not a nighttime park. Next is a lot of misinformation has been floated around in petitions and social media and Facebook and Nextdoor that Mr. Kruger is trying to take away waterfront property. Well, obviously, we're all educated folks, and we can see the survey here. There was never, nor is there now, a petition pending before this city council that in any way takes right-of-way property. And you have this in front of you, but if you look at the dot that is just, let's see, that would be west of the dark property line. Just for visual reference, that is the swim at your own risk sign before you go down towards the waterfront there. So there is no, and are you able to see that okay on the drawings in front of you? But if you look right there, just to give you a frame of reference as to where you are, that is the swim at your own risk before you start down to the waterfront. Now, the previous proposal, which is, you can barely see it, but we tried to do an overlay of the previous proposal, and the thinner line behind the dark line does go closer to that caution swim at your own risk sign. But even in the previous proposal, which is not before you now, there was never any waterfront access or waterfront property asking to be vacated by Mr. Kruger. The next thing that is all over social media is that Mr. Kruger is trying to prevent the public access to that right-of-way. Well, number one, Mr. Kruger doesn't have the ability to prevent public access to a city right-of-way. But if the council is to approve this petition today, the 30 feet, the right-of-way is 60 feet in width. All of the improvements by Mr. Kruger will be in the south 30 feet. So the entire north 30 feet will still be available for any pedestrian, foot traffic, etc., that wants to go down to the water. At LPA, there were concerns, well, will it be wheelchair accessible? Can a mother pushing a stroller get down the grass? Great questions, but the city has never maintained any type of paved access to that right-of-way or sidewalks or anything. It has always just been grass. And it's been demarked by large concrete planters that were installed years ago by the city. So whether someone can or cannot navigate that with a wheelchair or a stroller, I would tell you, is irrelevant to the petition before you, because the city has never maintained anything but a grass right-of-way there. Now, the city obviously has the ability to do so in the future if they want to. With that north 30 feet, they can pretty much come in and do any improvements they want. The other big misconception that we have here is that this is a City of Destin park. It simply is not. It is a right-of-way that was dedicated in 1939 for the extension of Harbor Lane all the way down to the water. I will not waste your time arguing that it has not been utilized as a park by the citizens of Destin for years. But it is not a park, and that is important because there are different statutory requirements and stuff that have to be complied with if you were asked to vacate a portion of a park. That is not what you're being asked to do. You're being asked to vacate a portion of a right-of-way that was intended to be Harbor Lane's extension down to the bayou frontage. Now, back to the history for just a second, because Mr. Kruger also had an email from the then city engineer, David Campbell, saying that he could put a fence and a gate in the right-of-way. He has emails from the city staff saying that he could install the bollards that a lot of the people in the public are complaining about that run the side of the driveway. And when Mr. Kruger came and retained my services and we started working with the city, Mr. Kruger, at the city's request, removed the gate that he had originally put up. He removed ropes or stringers that were between the bollards on the driveway. So we're trying to make as many folks happy as we can. Unfortunately, everybody's not going to be happy. But the question that you guys have to determine tonight as councilmen and women is the access the city has provided to Mr. Kruger reasonable access? We don't think it is. We think that you should approve the vacation of the partial right-of-way. The entire size of the right-of-way, just so you get an idea, is 60 feet wide by 511 feet in length, which is it is 30,660 square feet. The proposal tonight would be the vacation of 2,001 feet, 0.4. And we worked with staff through numerous drawings, numerous surveys, and we feel like we have pared down this request to as small as it can be and still accommodate reasonable access to that property. We've brought it east from the right-of-way. There is a square right there in this presentation that is not being requested to be vacated, that is kind of just sitting there. The reason for that is because that is the Tanaka's, the adjoining property's frontage, and it is, according to city staff, against city policy to vacate another property owner's frontage. So we had to go around that frontage of the Tanaka residence to get to the Kruger property, which, by the way, the Tanaka parcel is the one that causes the Kruger property to be landlocked. But so we had to cut that out. That wasn't an intentional design that Mr. Kruger had. It's just one that was necessitated by current city policy. So that is kind of a dead spot in the right-of-way, for lack of a better word. On October 14th, myself, Ms. Cobb, City Council, City Attorney, Land Use Attorney, Joe Bodie, and several other city members, Mr. Forgione with Code Enforcement, had a conference call with Ms. Trammell, again, when we were trying to work with the public on what is going to be the most acceptable, if any, vacation to the public. And we thought we had reached an agreement in that conference call to the proposal before you. At LPA, I can tell you that Ms. Trammell says that is not what she agreed to on the phone. I think everyone else in that room that day would disagree with that statement, but her position as of LPA, and I assume tonight that is not what she agreed to. But the reason I bring that up is because Mr. Kruger went to substantial expense to have all of these surveys redrawn based on that representation. And we have tried to appease as many folks as we can. And it seems like every time Mr. Kruger tries to appease the public, not the city, but the public, something else comes up that somebody else opposes. So we're here tonight asking you to approve this over the objection of probably a substantial number of the members of the public, but we don't have any choice. We are here because Mr. and Ms. Kruger need access to their property, and they need access that is reasonable. I welcome any questions that any of you have regarding any of these slides in our presentation. I have included the entire Allen permit with the drawings of the driveway that was in existence at the time Mr. Kruger purchased this property. I've included pictures. I've also included the Campbell email. This one is regarding the ballards because a lot of folks came out and said that Mr. Kruger went without permission and put these ballards in. This is an email from Mr. Campbell saying, please go put the ballards in. So there's just a lot of misinformation that has been presented via social media and all of these applications and the petitions that have been circulating. And what I'm attempting to do, and I hope I'm doing an okay job of it, is present you with the actual facts of what's before you tonight. And that is simply we're asking for a partial vacation of 2,001.4 square feet of the right-of-way at Harbor Lane. We think that it complies with all of the requirements, as does staff, as does the LPA. And we're asking you to approve that tonight. And I would like to move our entire presentation and package into the record.
Ms. Kopp, any objection?
No.
It is in the record.
I have a couple council members
Yes.
that would like to ask you some
Yes, sir.
questions. Up first will be Mr. Braden and then Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question is, why are we asking to vacate a larger portion of the right-of-way other than just the driveway itself?
So the driveway is going to, are you looking at the current proposal? Okay. So the, and let me, the driveway that exists today is actually going to be relocated if this partial vacation is approved. It's going to move south to where it is not over the 30 feet, center point of that right-of-way, and which was one of the requirements, I would say, that staff had to support this, was that all improvements be moved south of that 30-foot right-of-way, center line of the right-of-way. So partial answer to your question is because the driveway itself is moving down south, so it will extend further south than it does in that depiction.
Okay, thanks. My other comment is you were saying that the shrubbery and stuff shouldn't be a problem because people are not supposed to be there between dusk and dawn. But with that said, with the dead end signs and private driveway, no parking signs, people shouldn't be down there parking either. So people don't pay attention to the signs or anything else, so they're really not going to pay attention to be down there from dusk to dawn either. The 30 feet, that is actually beyond north, the 30-foot line is actually north of the wall that is up on the adjacent property, is it not?
Yes, that is a correct statement. So my understanding, well, first, the first part of your statement was I can't disagree with you that people aren't going to pay attention to any signs. I wish I could, but that's not the world we live in. Number two is yes, the wall that is on the north side of that right-of-way does protrude out into the city's right-of-way, and it is contained in the 30 feet that I referenced.
What is the distance between the wall and, I guess, the ballards that are going to be placed next to the driveway? Do you know what that distance is?
I do, once it's relocated.
Right, okay.
So it'll be approximately 20 feet.
Okay.
And there are shrubs also that are currently on the front side or facade of that wall in the city right-of-way that the city has the absolute ability, they're not ours, but the city absolutely could remove those if they saw fit, which would create a more open space.
Okay. My original proposal a year and a half ago, or whenever it was, 2 years ago maybe, that the city just extend the pavement on down another 45 feet or 50 feet so that there is access to this property. So that, say that it's landlocked, so it's not landlocked, so that the city would extend, use the right-of-way, use the purpose of the right-of-way and extend the pavement on down. There's the other, I do have a question for staff. On these permits, on the right-of-way permits that we've got, what is the difference between these right-of-way permits if somebody wants to put in a driveway, a cobblestone driveway or a brick paver driveway from the asphalt onto their property, they have to get a right-of-way permit to cross that right-of-way, and a lot of times we have to have concrete instead of brick pavers in that right-of-way. We have to come get a right-of-way permit for that. And what is the difference between me getting a permit for that right-of-way and actually getting these permits for the right-of-way that's actually out in the street?
There should be no difference at all. Anything that is constructed within the right-of-way must be permitted through that right-of-way construction permit process. The only difference here is that for your driveway, or for most driveways, you're actually tying into the side of the street. In this particular case, you're tying into the end of the street.
Like I say, there's basically no difference. It's just, it's in the right-of-way, and they can't obtain a right-of-way permit to put that cobblestone driveway or brick paver driveway.
Yes, with that hold harmless and maintenance agreement.
I don't have any more questions at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ranswell?
My question was answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ranswell. Mr. Overdeer?
No, Rodney got my question.
Any other questions? I'll ask a couple. Mr. Braden, I liked your solution. That'd be the simplest, but I don't think they're going to like that one either. I have a question. This will be for Kim, or for the attorney, I guess. Will the vacation of this right-of-way prevent any historical or present access or use of the remaining right-of-way, the way it's presented?
No.
When was this right-of-way designated a park? And I think
It was not legally designated a park. It was platted right-of-way in the 1939 plat, and it has been used as essentially a park by residents over the decades since that time, but it was never legally a park, and to this day it remains a platted right-of-way.
I just want to make a statement that I've lived on Mars Street since 1981, and my boys, who are now all in their mid to late, well, Bryce is 40, they utilize this area to ride their bikes and go down, and actually there was a dock at one point, and they'd ride down the hill off the dock into the water. But during that whole time, and I hadn't been down that way in a long time because I have no reason to, I don't have anybody to go visit, I never knew there was a park there. It was always just sand spurs and bushes, and the pavement ended and the kids kept a digging. So That's why I was wanting to know if this was actually a city park. I think the attorney stated that it was not. If it is, it's definitely not ADA compliant, which is another issue we're going to talk about tonight. And then another question, and I don't know, this might be better served for our engineer. Do any Destin residents access their property access across city right-of-ways?
Could I get you to say that one more time,
Is it
please?
normal for Destin residents to access their property across or from city right-of-ways?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in the last one, and Kim, you may answer this because I know you've done the research on the platting. Are there any other right-of-ways in this neighborhood? How are they being used?
I'm sure there are, but we don't have the specifics at this time. We've been focused on the specific application.
Okay, all right. I'll tell you, there's two more.
You knew the answer already.
Yeah, I was wanting it on the record from our city land use attorney. So yeah, there's two other right-of-ways there. One's used for personal use by a couple of the people that are adjacent to it. The other one is not being used at all. Those are the only questions that I wanted on the public record. I see that Mr. Braden has his lineup. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I forgot one. Is it true that this has been brought in front of the council 3 other times and was denied all 3 times?
Not to my knowledge. The only time I know that it was ever on the city council agenda, and I want to be very clear, to my knowledge, that is not true. But what I can tell you is that prior to my involvement, it was brought before city council, I believe, as an agenda item, but it was not moved forward on because at that time, the city lawyer, which was Jeff Burns, said that it should be taken off the agenda and a vacation of right-of-way should be applied for, which is then what Mr. Kruger went and moved forward with. So I don't believe that it's been before city council 3 times, and I don't think it's ever been voted on by city council. But I welcome any corrections to my statement.
No, that's correct. As stated, it went to LPA once as a different application, as we explained, and this is the first time that the vacate has been to the city council.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. Mr. Bowman.
If Mr. Ketcherson and Ms. Kopp have no further presentation at this time, Mayor Jarvis, I'd ask that you open it up to public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Before we get into the public comment period, I'm just going to remind the speakers, I'll call you off these blue cards at first. After that, just raise your hand, I'll recognize you, and you come up to the podium. Again, I want to remind you to address me or the council as a whole, and try to keep your focus of your comments to us, and I appreciate it. So, first up, Jim LaCrosse. Jim, just push the button, state your name and your address. You got 3 minutes, sir.
Jim LaCrosse, 812 Bayou Drive. My daughter and I use this piece of property, take her little friends down there. We need these areas. My fear is if a portion is given up, it's just going to pave the way for another portion to be given up and other pieces of property like this in the area to be vacated and given up. It's happened in the past, not right there, but on the other side of town. The whole thing sounds like a law enforcement issue. I think parking cars could be cured immediately by law enforcement. This part of town is very confusing because people get trapped in there, they get lost. There's a Harbor Road in the area. People think it's Harbor Boulevard. They're looking for their restaurants. So the drug activity, sex activity, I don't believe that is happening. It's lost people trying to find a way out of that area. Constantly I'm steering people out of there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. LaCrosse. We'll just keep the button on because it's going to not get wore out otherwise. Next up, Mr. Al Gardner. After that, if you'd like to find a seat up closer, Mark McGuirk will be next.
Councilman, Mr. Mayor, first of all, thank you for your service. I know this is a hard decision for you guys to deal with. My history in Destin goes back to the 60s when there were just 3 houses on Holiday Isle. I used to swim in the spring-fed lake at Shoreline Towers as a kid. Right out of college, I was working for a real estate company that was the broker for Shoreline Towers when it was coming out of ground. Lucky enough in the 70s to buy a lot in Kellair Gardens and built a home there in the 80s. I've lived at 738 Planet Drive since 2000, for 20 years now. I use that park occasionally to walk my dog. I have contributed to nefarious activity by going down there and watching the sunset or watching the fireworks show over the harbor. In my neighborhood alone yesterday, I counted 35 signs from my neighbors that are in opposition, and this is in Merino Acres, to the vacation of any portion of Harbor Lane. And partially because it's already encroached upon by the neighbor across the street with a brick wall and landscaping. And like the gentleman said, we're afraid that once you give up a portion of, then it's gone forever. I know that this problem exists because at some point under the county's jurisdiction, they were allowed to carve out a meets and bound description and sell a portion of the Tanaka lot, which all of those lots at that time had access from Bayou Drive. I've heard from some of you. I emailed you within the past couple weeks, and I heard back from a few of you, and thank you for your responses. I hope that when you make your decisions, it's not based upon friendship. It's based upon what the citizens of Destin want, what the majority of citizens of Destin want. I hope that you're not afraid of litigation because a city engineer made a promise that maybe he shouldn't have. I built homes in Destin, and I know about variances, and I know about right-of-ways. I know about those kinds of things. I know about setback requirements. One of my questions to the council would be, if he is on Harbor Lane, will he not be required a front setback like all of us in Merino Acres are? I live in a corner lot, so I have 2 front setbacks. So we're afraid that a brick wall, along with landscaping, will diminish our access into the property. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Up next, Mark McGuirk. Following him will be John Green.
My name is Captain Mark McGuirk and a resident at 721 Planet Drive. And by the way, I just handed him 239 signatures opposing this partial vacation of right-of-way. I've been a Destin resident for 51 years. I've also been a licensed boat captain for 41. After seeing the new city's strategic plan, I'm optimistic that securing the beach access we still have and possibly acquiring new ones is, in my mind, top priorities. After reading the front page of the Destin Log dated February 22nd, 2020, that states the latest step in Destin's beach acquisition initiative was the City Council unanimously approving to possibly spend more than $15 million to buy more public access. Doesn't it make sense to not give away what we always have been for us all to one private individual? Not one person that I've talked to is in agreement with what the adjoining homeowner at 604 Harbor Lane has done on our public right-of-way to access his own property. This includes metal gates, cables, locks, facial recognition cameras, infrared cameras, a long, custom, extremely wide driveway, including poles, ropes, borders. I think the property at 604 Harbor Lane should be entitled to access to his property, but a 12 to 15-foot driveway, just like the rest of us have. There's one thing we all must remember, is that Joe's Bayou, in my mind, has always been a safe harbor option
for us during the often numerous storms that we have throughout the year. It's been a place where we have needed as boating and fishing communities to secure our charter boats, private boats, and personal watercraft during bad weather. That's one of the reasons why this beach access is actually more important than most of the others. Not only can we legally have a place to check our boats, but always will need to help a friend with things like bringing extra anchors, ropes, chains. We've done it for all these years. It's been a great place to shuttle captains, crews, and family members back and forth to help during the storms. This right-of-way and beach access has been in place since the 1930s. This right-of-way can be an excellent place to get any kind of emergency vehicles, safety crews, medical equipment, etc., safely close to the water in case it's needed. I also believe this will be causing safety issues with any kind of gate, fencing, walls, shrubbery, landscape, poles. We've seen it all, and would greatly restrict the ability to help anyone in need. I must say at this point in my life, 5 years ago, I finally was able to build my dream home. My home's in a great location, great neighborhood, but most importantly, designated public beach access, close enough to walk to. I can tell you from living there that this right-of-way and beach access is used by me, my family, my friends, my neighbors, and the public on a daily basis.
Can you wrap up your thoughts? You're over your time.
I'm completely opposed to any vacation of right-of-way. I'm also opposed to any gates, walls, fences, cables, locks, cameras, additional parking, landscaping. That will hinder our ability to use this as beach access.
Thank you, Mark.
Again, since the 1930s.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Next up, John Green.
Good evening. John Green, 3792 Indian Trail. Come before you, I would agree with that gentleman 100%. Almost everything he says, so I'm going to forget a lot of the things that I was going to talk about. But I do want to mention a few things. I like to take the boat around. I like to pick up the kids. They can walk down there with their big rafts that I don't like to drag in the boat and take out to Joe's Bayou. I can pick them up. I don't know where that other park is. If it's northwest of that one, I know there's another access point. That ain't an access point. Doesn't have a road that goes a quarter of a mile down to the area so that they can easily walk without splinters and trees and all that stuff and snakes. So it is used. We use it, and it's very comfortable for us to get up and down. As I went out there, and I got to meet Mr. Marler there on Sunday, probably had a few, back and forth words, but he did say one thing. I took it home. I thought about it. He says, we have to give them access. And I was wrong. We do have to give the gentleman access to his driveway. But I think Tyler Engineering is probably going to talk about that a little bit more than I really want to go into. But yeah, we probably need to give him an access. It doesn't have to be in the middle of his property. It doesn't have to be at the end of his property. But somewhere, and I love the plans that were presented to us. They're small, they're not detailed, they don't show where the fence is. But I'll tell you what's out there right now. I could stretch my arms from here to here, and that's how much room I got to walk in. That, to me, ain't 20 feet. So I don't know about you guys on Sunday, but by God, this ain't 20 feet. The other thing is, I don't know about the grandfather in the park and everything. All I know is that for all these years, 70 years, 100 years, whatever it's been there, people have used it. And I don't know why you would even consider taking the use away from the neighborhood. And I guess the one thing that I hate to focus on this because it's more negative than positive. I want the guy to get some access to his drive. But I don't know. I've been in construction for a long time, done engineering a long time, 40 years by the fact. And I am yet to find one place I can build, one place that I can go to without me as a developer, me as an engineer, designing the pathway without me telling the owner he's got to pay for it. Now, I don't know why the city council or the city ever allowed the road to be platted, and if it was paved back then by
Can you wrap up
Marino,
your thoughts?
and if it showed that it had to be paved all the way, well, guess what? I'm sorry, city council, you didn't follow the rules, you didn't have it inspected, you didn't make the builder build it. Well, now the new builder's there, the new owner, he's
Got to
now
wrap it up.
responsible.
We got a lot of people to stop.
Pardon?
I said, got to wrap it up.
Okay, so I would say, leave the pavers. He can do the pavers, there's not a lot of traffic, it doesn't handle the regular road, but he should pay for it.
Thank you very much. Up next, Robert Gilmore. Folks, I'm going to start holding everybody to the fire when I say wrap it up. You got 15 seconds to make your last sentence, okay? We got a lot of people that want to talk. Go ahead, Robert.
Mayor, council members, Robert Gilmore, 812 Mars Street. I just want to take an opportunity to concur with the neighbors in opposition to the vacation of the right-of-way. This is an area that I've used, and my family, my daughter, like the mayor, my daughter and her friends have gone down there to visit the water side, to enjoy that area. We've walked our dogs down there. We go down there and watch the sunset. One thing I might add, in regards to the park issue, or the designation or the non-designation of a park, we've experienced the property improved with picnic table, a swing, signage, and
Maintenance
to my knowledge, and maintenance to my knowledge, those improvements were placed by the city. I could be wrong on that, but which in my mind indicated that it was actually a city park. Let's see if there's it was hard to tell from the drawings that Mr. Ketcher said it had placed, and I know it's hard to place up here, but it appears that the width of space that was, and I agree with my prior neighbor that was up here, the width of space would be minimal, not 20 feet that would be left. I question whether or not, and I would ask the city council to review whether or not 30 feet is required if the city was inclined to approve this vacation. Is a half of the right-of-way reasonable, or could a driveway be something less than 30 feet? My driveway is not 30 feet wide. So I think that, that's an issue that should be considered and should be thought through. And also, I forget if there was a mention of it, of extending the pavement. And those are, I put these forth just for issues for you to consider when looking at this. Is it reasonable to vacate that much of the right-of-way if the city council is inclined to approve this? And, again, I would request that it be denied, and just want to voice our opposition to the request.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
One more thing, Sonia Gilmore, his wife. That person has had a right-of-way for as long as they've owned that property, from owner to owner. Now, all of a sudden, you get a new owner who suddenly wants to take over part of a park that we've enjoyed for almost 100 years. He has a right-of-way. The city has a right-of-way. If they want to pave that right-of-way to give access to whatever utility vehicles or get from a way out of his property that's guaranteed or paved, then that's fine. But don't take our park away, please.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to start over here at this side of the room, and I'll work my way across this side of the room. That'll be the easiest, so I don't have to play pick a person. So anyone over here in this side of the room would like to come up next and speak. Sir, come on up. Give your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Scott Murray, 3796 Indian Trail. Been there about 30 years. We all know everybody used the park in the neighborhood and around the neighborhood. And I get we need to give a man access to his property. I don't get the 60 some odd feet at the end. And, if you'll ride down the Indian Trail to the plushest houses in the city, the driveways are about 12 feet wide. Why do we need to take all this property to make this elaborate drive? So look around the whole city. Driveways are about 12 feet wide. That's all the time I'll take.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over here, next. Go ahead, raise your hand. I'll recognize you if you're over in this corner. No? Moving this way. Go ahead. Come on up, ma'am. Reset the clock there, Ray, if you would. And when you drop off items like that, just tell us what you gave him, okay? And
I was
for
able
the
to put them on the screen, but I
okay,
wasn't able to.
for the
so I
public record.
apologize. Hi, my name is Joanne Bouchlan. I live at 720 Planet Drive. I attended the LPA meeting in 2018 and again in 2020, and now I'm here trying to figure out how we got here. I received 2 letters from the applicant's attorney, including a cease and desist, and I'm aware that there are many others in this room that did also, so I appreciate you allowing me my voice. I became more motivated to go and research, and here's what I discovered in the documents that were provided to me by the city after a public records request and also by Ms. Kopp after a meeting with her. In the January 2020 LPA meeting, Mr. Ketcher said, and I quote, "When Mr. Kruger purchased that property, he was under the incorrect assumption that he would be allowed to fence and gate that driveway. I've also read other people's accounts that a prior city employee had erroneously issued a permit and some promises, and that the city was concerned with a lawsuit or a potential lawsuit. So I went looking for documents. In December 2014, Ms. Allen was issued a permit for the gravel driveway, no fence and no gate. That was up on the screen. But Clause 11 states if the work was not commenced within 60 days or within 365 days completed, that permit was void. So the driveway was not constructed as far as I know, and the hold harmless was that not attached to that permit at that point. May 2016, the applicant purchased the property. The applicant stated that when he purchased the property, he was given a due diligence package containing previous permits. What was on the screen was the previous permits from Ms. Allen. But it had no gate and no fence. So in May of 2017, a hardscape plan by Kelly & Co. was stamped received and included a concrete drive, a concrete walkway, and a proposed aluminum fence and a gate in 2017, all placed in the right-of-way. May 23, 2017, a right-of-way permit to grant residential access by adding the driveway to the end of Harbor Lane was submitted with no fence and no gate. May 24th, that's when the email from Mr. Campbell that I have, that Ms. Kopp graciously gave me, which discussed a gate, but in the 2018 council meeting on February 5th prior, Mr. Campbell has stated that they had allowed a temporary gate while the construction was ongoing. Was that what he was talking about? I don't know. If there's another permit out there, I would like to see it. Are there additional emails or permits? He also stated that we cannot allow a portion of the right-of-way to be fenced off and used for private purposes, as shown on Callie's drawing. The following day, the permit was signed. May 31st, a revised hardscape plan from Callie was received, with the gate and the fence removed. Then construction started. So my question is, does another permit exist that had a gate and a fence on that? I worked for a developer and a builder, and I can tell you they promised us so many things, but unless you have that in a permit, you can't go and build something. You have to have the permit. So again, I'm confused, and just one more question. Since the applicant is requesting unimpeded access to a property, why don't we just pave down to his access and allow him a driveway like we're all allowed? I'm against this vacation of right-of-way, and I really hope that you would too also.
Mayor?
Okay.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have just one question.
Yes.
Could you please identify what you gave Mr. Bailey?
Yes, I gave him I gave him both of the permits that I discussed here, which was Exhibit 1, which was Ms. Allen's permit. I gave it's an email. Exhibit 2 was Mr. Kruger's email to Ms. Trammell where he stated he was given a due diligence packet prior to the purchase with valid permits. Exhibit 3 was Callie's drawing, which shows the actual gate and fence drawn on prior to, which was submitted in the house drawing packages. These are all public records, by the way, that I received. The next one was Exhibit 5, which was Mr. Campbell's email, which Ms. Kopp gave me, or forwarded to me. And then Exhibit 6 was the hardscape plan with the gate and the fence removed.
Okay, thank you. Is that all you need, Steve?
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Ms. Kopp, would you like to address that one question, please?
Which question would you like me to address?
Well, you can do both of them if you like. The ones she asked. Do you remember them?
Well, there were a lot of questions. If you're asking about the permits and whether a gate was permitted, is that the question? Okay, I can't testify, but I can let Mr. Bodie testify. Although I do know the answer, we will let staff respond.
Mr. Bodie.
No gates have been permitted at 604 Harbor Lane.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Trammell. I got yours. And any, that's all you got to do.
But I have pictures, I can't see them.
Public comment, okay? Sorry to be coarse, but I set the ground rules early. I can't change them now.
Well, we did not know that you had an issue with thumb drives and bringing them, and so none of us got those pre-approved, and when we came tonight, they didn't have the machine, so.
I hope you understand that in today's world of security with our brand-new computer software
Well, I understand
program.
it fine. If we'd have just been told, we'd adhered to it. Anyway, all right. I want to go on and say that right now, you've heard my name battered all around. It's not me. Neighbors came to me in 2018 and asked me to help. And I said, okay, I've been on the council. I at least know how the council works. I can help you. So that's where we started with this. In our efforts to solve this issue, we had 3 things in mind. We wanted to provide Mr. Kruger with his access, we wanted to provide his family with security, and we wanted to solve the issues the best way we could that would be fair to everybody. We've looked at all of the options, and I believe one of them was up there. I've given it to Mr. Bailey, but option 3 was just a little narrow strip that went 15 feet up to where the current road is. So then we went to option 2, which was give him his driveway, and option 1 was to extend the road and give him his driveway. He wanted a fence, a gate, and access to his property, and safety. So he wanted those 4 things, so we tried desperately to do that. By extending the road, he can have the 24-foot wide driveway that Mrs. Kruger has told me many times that she was promised. They can still get to the road. They can put their gate on the property line, and then even if somebody parks at the end of the road, they can go around them because it's nothing but dirt. There's no need to do anything. We have no mention of any in our police files. You'll hear about that tonight. But we want the 24-foot driveway with a permit and no vacation, with a gate along the property line. This would allow for signage, striping, lighting, and all the other things that we've asked, that all of us have asked for. This option would increase the safety for the property owners, reduce parking, and make it easier to patrol, as indicated by Captain Nix in your cover packet tonight. It would also allow for emergency vehicles, whether to the homeowners or to others. The other part that this would do is, if you look at your LDC and your comp plan, you can subdivide big properties now. If you subdivide the property to the north, you're going to need an additional driveway south, right at the end of this road, right where it ends right now. If you give a vacation, which is over half right now of the road, if you give that vacation, then you've got to get that person in the north, in 20 years, whenever they ask for it, a driveway. So now you've completely eliminated the access that they are proposing to have all the way down to the beach. So by extending the road, that will suffice for everybody. Also, we contacted an experienced utility contractor familiar with Destin, and he says the cost to extend the road would be about $20,000. Then I'm going to recommend that you add that to your next resurfacing list for the future. But tonight I'm here to say, require him to remove the camera from the right-of-way, deny the vacation, move the to extend the road at least 45 feet and add additional striping, and like you did out on Airport Road, no parking, actually on the road. And keep all the signage or enhance the signage.
Thank you.
It kills all the...
Thank you, Sandy.
Thanks.
A question.
Sandy, she has a question for you.
Has this been shared with the Krugers and their attorney?
We attempted to share this in October when the Krugers and their attorney met with Ms. Kopp, and she informs me that she asked them to contact me to share this. I tried to contact Mr. Ketcher, said he did not return my call. So we have attempted to try, and I have a timeline here that I've given to Ray that shows everything that we've attempted in the last 2 years, and there's 2 full pages crammed full.
Does Ray have a copy of the option that you're
Yes, he
discussing
does.
tonight?
Yes,
and
he
does
does.
Mr. Ketcherd and his client as
No,
well?
they do not, because,
I would
give them one.
suggest somehow they get a copy of that just to see what you're proposing.
Can I give them one now?
Fine.
Mayor, may I give them one now?
Mr. Ketchum, would you like to address this matter?
I would. So
Thank you, Sandy.
the
If anyone has any questions, I'll call you back
Anybody
up.
else? Okay.
So whatever I was just handed, this is the first time I've seen it. Number 2, what you were just told is a complete misstatement. I left numerous voicemails for Ms. Trammell on her cell phone. She has not returned my call one single time. And I don't mean, no, ma'am.
Order.
But,
Finish.
All right.
excellent. So now you have a copy of this so you can see what she was presenting.
There we go. Does any other council person have any questions for Ms. Trammell? Sorry to cut you off, Sandy, but 3 minutes is 3 minutes, but I wanted to give you opportunity. All right? Next. Go ahead. That's how you do it. You stand up quickly, and I'll recognize you fast. Go ahead. State your name and your address. You got 3 minutes. Go
Hi,
ahead.
my name is Kim Destin. I live at 717 Harbor Lane. We've lived there for 21 years, and I, like many hundreds of our neighbors, have enjoyed that beach access area. I just want to give you a history of the area. It was always tried to be encroached on by the neighboring neighbors. This is not the first time. Back in '96, the neighbor before this particular homeowner tried also to request a vacation. That was denied for various reasons. In '99, there was also on the right side of this property a vacation requested. That was also denied for various reasons. But instead of a vacation being granted, land has been automatically taken. There's a wall on the right side that encroaches 12 feet on the property. So we're not using what we should be able to use. We don't know if there's a permit for that wall or what, but we are not able to use the full amount. We do agree that the paving would give the homeowner access and no vacation need be necessary. And we're talking about the needs and desires of one person or several homeowners there over the years versus hundreds of neighbors that use this property. These are Destin residents. They're your constituents. I mean, this is not about friendship or clients or business associates. This is what is best for the Destin residents. And as we moved into Merino Acres, we were promised that we would have water access. That was part of living in this neighborhood, and we have enjoyed that. But also some things that the city has done. In '99, the Recreation Committee approved that this was in compliance with the comp plan for it to be called a safe harbor access. Okay, there was a land swap that was requested in October '99, and that they said the Rec Committee, according to public records, said that it violated the comp plan. Okay, and then in 2004, boat captains used the area during the storms, and they requested that they would like to see the area paved. These are in the Destin City records. This is use that the citizens and that has been used. So I would request that you would say no to a vacation that is unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I have a question for you.
Hold on. Go ahead, Mr. Braden.
The first vacation of right away that was denied was in '96.
Yes, sir. It was in 96 by the Doss family.
Do you know what the second one was that you mentioned?
Yes, in 99, Jay Odom requested a vacation. And if you're going to deny vacations to other homeowners, why should this one be approved?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, hold on. Hold on. I recognize the gentleman in the back, so you be second, okay?
Good evening, council. Mr. and Mrs. Davis were the owner of the paver company that installed the driveway in question. That driveway...
Name and address, please, sir.
I'm sorry?
Name and address, please.
We live in Baker, Florida, but we own a paver company here locally. So...
Speak in the microphone.
So we own the paver company that put the pavers on this driveway. This is a Gary Miller home, which I'm sure many of y'all know. The Millers built many houses in this town. I've done 20 years worth of their business. So this driveway in question, I probably have more time on this driveway than anybody in this whole building combined. I've met this city out here 25 times. Some council missing between Tuffy Dixon, Joe Bodie. I mean, I can just go on down the line if y'all want. The width of this driveway and this 12-foot, well, this was permitted going around to there. The actual 20-something feet actually is in his property line. The part that they say is a park, y'all, can't be a park because in the state of Florida, a right-of-way cannot dead into what is called a park. It can only be an easement access. That is the law. Go look it up. The part of they can't have access to that water is completely false. I've done 80% of the work that's on that job. I spent 4.5 months there. There's plenty of access. There's two concrete planters sitting there. When he says this is all the room you got, obviously somebody hasn't been down there. You take the two concrete planters away and I can drive my F-450 to the water. The reason those planters are there, which I'm sure everybody in this room knows, the reason they're there is so nobody can drive down to that park. So what is the difference between that paver driveway and this gentleman asking for a gate to block off his driveway so people don't park on it, and y'all's concrete planters to block off the park so nobody drives down there and parks? Because you know and I know they'll drive down there, they'll park, and they'll do what they feel free to do. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Question?
Next.
Actually, I have a follow-up for the land use attorney based on something he said.
Go ahead, ma'am.
He was stating that in the state of Florida that a right-of-way cannot dead end at a park. Is that accurate, and is that in our comp plan?
I don't know if he said dead end into a park. It cannot be a park. I don't see why a right-of-way can't go to a park, but it can't be used as a park.
So that's what that's being used as right now.
Legally, it should be used as a right-of-way.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Next up, gentleman that just stood up a second ago. Okay, it's not Chippendale. One of y'all step up there. Indubitably. Name and address. Thank you, sir. 3 minutes.
I gave the gentleman
Ray?
a slideshow that I was going to do.
All right.
That's all it was, and it has some stuff on policies and such. You can take a look. My name's Rob Bouchelon, live at 720 Planet Drive, and I don't support the partial vacation of this right-of-way. He does require access, and by state law, he gets access. That's not the issue. The issue is a fence and a gate and where the access is. Just as you heard from the last gentleman that spoke, he's refuting what everybody's saying. He's saying there's a large area. So I had my interest in this. I started looking at some of the comp plan, land development code. Was really interested in this, and since I lived there, and I started looking at some common themes in the comp plan. Some of the words you'll hear, some of the phrases you'll see in different policies varies from Chapter 1. You'll hear promote scenic corridor, promote scenic vistas, protect access to shoreline areas, preserve, enhance public right-of-ways, views of water bodies, preserve, retain views to shoreline. LDC shall provide standards that promote waterfront views. So it's not about the access so much, Or is it? It's really the view. So the fence and the gate is where we don't see. So if that area gets vacated, I assume you can approve up to an 8-foot gate, and there's not a good picture because I don't have it. I gave it to them, and you're going to be restricted of your view. As I said in the LPA meeting, there's coyotes out there and all sorts of stuff that could pop around corners, and you're not going to be able to see. That view is going to be restricted. And I only have 3 minutes, so I don't want to go on to everything, but in Chapter 6, there's also information that kind of leads to the view. And then in 7, we're talking about Table 7.1. It states that beach shoreline access, specifically Joe's Bayou, you should have one access point per half mile. And again, it's everywhere. Everywhere I see, every policy. And then to one last comment on the park, or not so much called a park. There's a lot of history. Dug up some information, public records. One thing I was shown was that was really interesting. In 2000, the Recreation Committee stated that they had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I'm trying to find the right one. And what happened was money was donated. The community came together and put in money, put in steps. They were donated. And I do believe, with that said, that there was monetary value. And back in 2000, 20 years ago, there was an invested interest in that area right there. And so it's called a park, called a right-of-way, yes, but the community had interest in it, and also back then the Recreation Committee and the council putting funds into that.
All right, thank you.
So that's it. I do not support the partial vacation, but give him his right, give him his entrance.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mayor, I have a question for this gentleman.
Go ahead, sir. Come on back to the podium. Come on to the podium. Rodney's got a question for you.
If the council approved this vacation with conditions that there could be no fence, no wall, no bushes, no gate that would block that view, and you did have 20 feet of access to go to the water, would that be something you would be for or against?
Personally, no vacation, yes. He should be able to have that access, and the brick pavers there, that's fine. It's the putting up the fence and the gate, that's what it's really about. You don't have to vacate the property to do what he's got right now, but you have to vacate it to put a fence and a gate on there, and that's what it boils down to, and that takes away our access, our view from the road, all those things that I mentioned in the comp plan and the LDC, and then also the safety hazards.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, sir. I got some more coming from the same direction. Like I said, I'll keep working my way down. Everybody's got their 3 minutes. Unless you agree with the comments already made, and you can just come up here and agree with them. Thank you. Go ahead.
Carl Trammell, 3823 Indian Trail, Merino Acres. I agree with everyone who spoke except for one to this part tonight. I was born here in Destin, Highway 98, 2-lane, wooden bridge. All the aisles was just sand, no roads, no canals. Please do not vacate Joe's Bayou's access at the south end of Harbor Lane. I'm a Destin native for the next 69 years, grew up on the Destin Harbor, married 10 years later, bought a lot on Indian Trail, built our home. Nothing like growing up on the water. Those living on the water, those living on the interior lots do not have the view and tranquility as do waterfront owners. How often do property owners with interior lots see and enjoy this, and they are so close to the water? The water at the access is pretty clear, a sandy bottom. Most of Joe's Bayou is muddy. If you wade in it, you'll bring up to your knees. Thank goodness that Coleman Kelly and others had the vision to leave the Merino Acres access for all future residents to enjoy. This has property value to Merino Acres residences. Mr. Kruger has access to his property. He does not require vacation for a driveway. Your actions tonight will be setting a precedent for all rights-of-ways with beach access. Others are watching to see how this plays out to request vacations. He speaks about bad behavior at the access. We have not seen or heard of any bad behavior down there. We want to be safe for all. He complains about his driveway being blocked with people walking on his pavers. If this is true, giving him the land will not prevent the driveway from being blocked. Drivers know not to block someone's driveway. You put up no parking signs, no tow signs. Just paint a 20 by 20 diagonal box in front of his entrance, like you see at Walmart. People won't park those hash lines. Mr. Kruger knew what he was buying. He has lived in this neighborhood for over 15 years. It's not the city's job to bail him out. This is such a nice community. A lot of property owners have stayed in this neighborhood and upgraded their homes or built new ones. I'm staying put. Mr. Kruger's an investor. I'm sure he will sell in the near future. He's trying to increase the value of his property against a lost remaining acre property owners. All other rights of ways, access on Destin are full width of the right of way. Captain Nix also stated that much safer, easier to patrol with a clear line of sight. The proposed vacation will not meet this standard. How can the city justify applying for grants for beach access with limited walkways that could increase the danger to adjoining property owners and local residents who use the beach access? At the LPA meeting, I was not impressed by Mr. Kruger's guest speakers indicating he was the only good person in the room. We're all good people. We're going to the Joe's Bio for Hurricanes. A lot of the elders are not here tonight in the community because it's a long meeting, not good for their health. If the city is going to give away waterfront property in the future, every property owner in the city of Destin should be notified by mail and put on the front page of the newspaper. If anyone's name is mentioned in opposition tonight, you should be allowed to come up and speak again.
Can you wrap it up, Carl?
One sentence.
Got it.
Let the city extend the road, the asphalt, give him access. And there's a piece of paper here. If I can get to it. Got it right over there. City's vision 2035, top thing. Public beach initiative, acquisition of beachfront property. Another one.
Carl.
Public beach acquisition initiative.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it very much. All right. Hold your apologies, gentlemen in the navy blue suit, shirt, and you, come on up. And then, Tommy, you can go next.
Good evening, council members. My name is Blake Kruger. I live at 227 Mattie M. Kelly Boulevard. Been a actual homeowning resident for 8 months now to boast my credentials in that sense. But really, I'm just here to talk to you all about is in support of Mr. Kruger here, my father. I'm going to have to disclose that, not trying to keep that secret. What he's just trying to do here is, just keep himself safe, to keep peace of mind to himself, his family. I remember at the previous meeting there was talk about assailants hiding nearby or coyotes down there. Well, I'm scared of those. I don't know about y'all, but I'd kind of like to have a fence or at least something, a gate, something to keep me away from those things. That sounds pretty scary. But in all these instances that have been mentioned, nothing is being taken away from the people. They still have their access. They still can walk down there and still have their view. All that Mr. Kruger is trying to do is just keep himself safe. We've heard complaints about people saying he needs to get rid of the gate, the fence, the rope, the cables, and the cameras. I don't know if they're facial recognition cameras. I think they're just cameras. But he wouldn't need all those things if there weren't people constantly in his driveway or trespassing onto his property. But trespassers are going to trespass, as we all know. Can't stop that. But he's just trying to keep himself and his family safe, once again. As well as the fact that people are saying, definitely all good people here, everyone who's spoken here tonight are good people. They're just concerned that, something may be taken away from them. And I can understand that. But this argument is a slippery slope logical fallacy to say that what he's doing will lead to events that could possibly happen later on or could possibly happen 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now. But that's not really fair to put all on him. As well as the fact that he's been trying to work with the people. He's been here before. I'm sure you all are sick of looking at his face. I understand the feeling. He's not trying to fight everyone here. He's not trying to own the city of Destin. He's not trying to take away everything and hoard and twirl his evil goatee. He's not trying to do anything like that. He's just trying to keep himself safe and his family safe and just kind of be off in his own little corner. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, sir. Tom, comment? Go ahead, sir. Ma'am, you can be next.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you.
State your name and address there, sir.
Okay, Tommy Carter, 3813 Indian Trail. This is our fourth home in Merino Acres subdivision.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you request that some of the background noise go down, because it's echoing and making it difficult to hear?
Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. What she said. Start Tommy over. By the way, it's Captain Tommy to me. Go ahead, sir.
3813 Indian Trail. It's our fourth home in Merino Acres, and probably over 40 years. And so this neighborhood we love this neighborhood. Just a couple, maybe 3 points and maybe a question. We looked at this lot. My wife and I our dream was to maybe one day have a waterfront lot. But as time went on, it seemed like the lots went up faster than our ability to pay for one. But eventually, we have now a lot on the bay over there at 3813 Indian Trail. We looked at this lot, the property in question, and one thing is pretty obvious, that there's going to be a parking issue. It's a very small lot, kind of an odd shape, and you'd have to build a really 2 or 3 story structure and to have any amount of parking. So we passed on that lot. To me, it appears that parking is a key issue here. It appears to me that what would happen if the council decided to vacate this right-of-way, that it would be really just primarily extra parking for the homeowner. And also, it can set, I think it can set a bad precedent, vacating city property for a private individual. And one quick question, what, if any, compensation will the city receive if this property is vacated?
Thank you, Tommy. Would you like to direct that question to our land use attorney, or?
You can direct the question to me, and there is not compensation. There are code criteria that are in your staff report, and compensation is not something that the council adopted into the code. If the code criteria are met, then the council should vacate the right-of-way. If the code criteria are not met, they should not. It's not a compensation issue.
Thank you very much for the clarification, ma'am. Thank you, Tommy.
Mayor, I have a follow-up for Ms. Kopp.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Ramswell.
Is it not true, though, that the city would have had to put out our own money to pave a road to get to Mr. Kruger's property?
Correct.
So in a sense, the compensation would be that we didn't put out the money to build the road.
You could look at it that way, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Ma'am? Just remind everybody, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so these questions may seem a little redundant, but they are to put them on the public record. So that was a good question, Ms. Ramswell. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Summer Jarosowitz. My address is 804 Jupiter Street, and my family has enjoyed this right-of-way access for 18 years. I do have the police reports here for the past 5 years. I am only showing 3 reports for parking complaints. I show 4 calls for suspicious vehicles. This is over a 5-year period. So the parking issue is not either being reported or there's not one. Reports also show that watch orders have increased by 80 to 90% since the meeting on August the 30th for extra patrol.
Can you repeat that last sentence? What has increased?
The watch orders that we requested on August the 30th at the meeting, the unofficial neighborhood meeting that we had. So.
Okay, thank you. Is that all? Or,
there's
no,
also been 0 arrests at this location for 5 years. That's very important.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Alan Rogers. I'm a local business owner, and I live here in Destin on Papaya Park. I'm here
Could you give your address where you
Yeah,
live?
4744 Papaya Park.
Thank you, sir.
I'm hearing as in favor of Mr. Kruger's request. One, I'm a developer and builder as well, contractor, and as council, I think, just addressed the committee or the board and said that they have met the requirements as required by code, and those requirements have already been passed. So that is one issue that while there seems to be a lot of emotional people that have different decisions, once you've met the requirements of the law, I feel like the law should be followed. I've heard some people say about their lifelong residency here. I was born and raised here. So 58 years, I've seen changes where on Holiday Isle, there were no structures, no homes, no buildings, no condos, nothing. A wooden bridge, and Crab Island was an island with trees on it. So I've seen a lot of changes, and we're here talking about a few feet of waterfront property that's not changing. The amount of waterfront property is not changing. The access is not changing, even though it's maybe made smaller, but he is given the access to the property. Another point I'm thinking here, listening to all of this, is that many people, one gentleman just stated, he had the opportunity to buy this property. I'm sure the city at some point had the opportunity to buy this property, acquire it, turn the entire right-of-way into a park, and they could have done so. But over the years, it was not done. The property remained for sale, and it was bought and purchased by the Krugers in order to enjoy it with their home. I will say this, I have a family member in another part of the state of Florida that has lived next to a right-of-way of this nature. A homeless person got into their home and severely beat one of the children. And I tell you, living through an experience of that nature, it only takes once. And if someone cannot protect their property, we don't never know what homeless person or what kind of person might involve themselves at this right-of-way, not being a park. And it would only take one situation for that to occur to anybody's family. And I think everyone would regret it. And that's my thoughts in favor of the Kruger position.
Thank you very much, Alan. I got to Captain Tommy, and now I'm moving towards the center room. Does anyone want to raise their hand or add to that? Go ahead, come on up. And then, ma'am, you can go after him. Again, 3 minutes. State your name and your address for the public record. Plus, we want to know who you are.
Brian Otto, 3826 Indian Trail, so right around the corner. Appreciate you guys' time today. This has been really interesting. I just probably skip a lot. I agree with a lot of what the people are against it or for, against the partial vacation are for, but I do have a different opinion on it, as I feel like most of these people have said how long they've been here. We're next, right? My wife and I live on the corner. We moved in a couple years ago. We have 8 kids. We use the park. Right away access. My wife goes down there all the time. My daughter's favorite thing is to go down there, take pictures, and a lot of times, drop the boats off just like everyone else. But I just feel like we're next, and we're taking it away from us. A lot of people have talked about how they've been here 30 years, but I feel we're next. My big issue is the fence and the gate, like everyone else. When I went back and I watched 2018, I have to agree with you, Mr. Braden, or Councilman Braden. I feel like just paving it down past the end, or at least you had kind of made some kind of suggestion of that, paving it down past the end, it kind of seems like it makes a lot of sense to where the gate can be on the property line, then just go past the property line. My big concern is giving it away. It is an encroachment. I don't want to sit here and say it's this long or it's 20 feet. It's an encroachment, right? My wife wants to get off the boat in the afternoon. Do I feel comfortable letting her go up down to this alleyway with no nothing? I mean, it doesn't have to be dark. I don't know why we keep bringing up the thing. It has to be nighttime for crime to happen. I just want to bring that up too. It can happen in the middle of the day. You have walls, you have fences. My wife, my daughter, whoever's going off our boat on that beach there, going up to our house, will have to walk through an alleyway in some kind of narrower part than it is today. So I just think I would like to see the road be built down further, like it sounds like it should have been a long time ago, and then maybe then it's still as wide as it ever was. A fence is still there. Parking is parking. People park wherever they're going to do. I don't know what we can do about that anywhere in the city. So I just feel like the solution was best, and has already been said a few times of just bringing it down. So if there's not any questions for me, I'll go sit back down.
Did you say you had 8 kids?
9 on the way.
I'm sorry?
9 on the way.
God bless you.
So yes, we're going to be using it next, so please
So, and I have 2 daughters and a wife that have to walk up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, come on up. Well, hold on just one second. I recognize the lady behind her. You can go next.
Hi, Michelle Boswell, 420 Oak Harbor Lane. I've emailed everybody here tonight already on this, but there have been some other issues that were brought up tonight. And to be quite honest, one of the things that I can't figure out is how it even made it this far. I was at both the LPA meetings, and the last LPA meeting, we had only 2 people got up there and spoke, stating, like you guys did at the beginning of the meeting, what they knew about it and what maybe the relationship may have been. I was at the prior LPA meeting, and 3 or 4 people spoke, and I know at least one of those gentlemen were on the LPA meeting, on the LPA board, and he never spoke, never said what his relationship was with the applicant. And according to Florida statute number 112.3143, appointed members of board and committees do have to either recuse themselves or at least state their professional relationship or their knowledge of the application. And I know at least one member has some type of a professional relationship with the applicant. It's shown on his website, on Mr. Kruger's website. Another point that I wanted to bring up, I mean, this isn't a threat or anything, but citizens here are watching how you guys are voting tonight. And I think you guys are aware of that. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why he should be given this vacation right of way. His safety, why is his safety more important than the public's that goes down and uses that access point? He can put, like his lawyer said, he could put a fence along his property line. He still has access to his property with a driveway, either the current one that he has or one that's been proposed tonight that's paved and then the driveway put in closer to the east side of his property. The one he is proposing takes up a whole lot more land that is needed than is needed for a driveway. It goes up very close to the existing trees that's not shown on any of the photos or the boundary surveys that were shown. He is using parking space that is not on his pavers. I've seen it. I've taken pictures of it. There were at least 3 cars inside of his property, 3 cars right outside of his property line, and onto the pine straw on the right of way, not on his property. And that is right underneath one of the trees that's there, not the burled oak that's already about half dead, but the one that's closer to the water that has the picnic table underneath it, the area where everybody uses. And he's already parking on that. Okay, well, I agree with everyone else here, most everyone that has already spoken, and hope that you vote no on this vacation right away. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a question for you, or
Yes.
a request. Afterwards, can you get with me or give the individual's name that was on that LPA meeting?
Absolutely.
That you're referring to?
Yes.
So I would like to get that with our attorney and look
Okay.
into that further. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
In fact, Kyle, you were there. Do you feel like, I'm on the same line as you are. Do you feel that the LPA followed the law of disclosure during that time frame?
I was unaware of any disclosure that was required at the time, but I'll look into the matter further if directed by council.
I would ask that you look into that. I do feel that that's not professional, for them to be friends or, partners or whatever, and then not even speak, whether they are for it, against, or anything else, just vote for it or however. But I want that being looked into.
I will look into it.
Thank you.
And just the reason we're here tonight, though, I just want to kind of share how do we get here. This is what happens when you follow the rule of law and procedures and ordinance. This is what public meetings are all about. This is the course it's supposed to take. So you may disagree that it shouldn't have got this far, but it got this far because this city, this council, our staff, our attorneys are following the laws, statutes, and ordinances and respecting the life and liberty we all enjoy with private property rights. So I just wanted to make that statement on the public record as well. So next, ma'am, come on up.
My name is Joan McClelland, and I live at 4488 Luke Avenue in Destin. And I am for Mr. Kruger to have his right-of-way in the way that he's requesting. I've listened to everything that's gone on here tonight, and I'll tell you, it's very confusing if you listen. Because most people think that they're not going to have access to the water, and obviously they are. So what their problem is, I don't know. I understand that, yes, he's going to be out in the right-of-way, but there's still going to be plenty of room. And 60 feet is 60 feet. If the area were cleaned up and the bushes were moved back, you'd have 60 feet. So whoever takes care of the right-of-way obviously needs to take care of that. But I was president of the Homeowners Association for Grand Harbor for 8 years, and I was on the board there for many years past that. And we had a right-of-way right to the left of our building, and we had a lot of problems there. We had indigent people there that spent the night all the time. They actually lived there. We had drugs that went on all the time. Evidently, this park, supposedly no park, but right away, is not supposed to be used after hours, from dusk to in the morning. And it's like our place, it was used, and it was used very badly. And anytime you have a place like this, people are going to use it. I don't know about the cameras. I don't think that Mr. Kruger has cameras anywhere that's in the right-of-way. If he does on his property, I think that's his right. And I also think it's his right to be able to protect himself and his family. And if this is granted to him, then he should be able to have a fence and a gate, the whole thing. And I do not think that it would affect the view of anybody there. I think it is the right of an individual to feel safe, to have his family feel safe, and I think that's all he's trying to do. And I think that people who have gotten up here and said no to this, they're very selfish because I guess gavel.
I'm going to respectfully ask for everyone to keep quiet and respect this person's right to their opinion as well as she respected yours.
Thank you. Because
a few more seconds, ma'am.
I apologize. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But they are still going to have the use of the right-of-way as whatever they're using it for right now. And one of the individuals talked about if this is put out into there, that the walkway's going to be smaller and they won't be able to see and it'll be dangerous. Well, what do you think it's going to be doing to the Krugers? Okay, not having this there, but what they've got right now with people coming and going, and they have no way to protect themselves.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Folks, I'm hoping that we're getting close to the end of this. From this point forward, this is not a cheerleading session. We're not rooting for one team over the other. Be respectful. Let each person share their opinion. Keep it at that. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end the public hearing at this point because I don't want it to get unruly. So, I've got a couple hands up. Go ahead. Yep. And I'll catch Teresa next, and I had a lady over here that put her hand up. Go ahead, ma'am.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. I'll make this quick as I can. I wanted to point out that in the agenda, item number 4 this evening specifically has a comment about Captain Nix meeting with city staff. Currently, the proposed portion of right-of-way to be vacated does not close public water access to Joe's Bayou. The question of placing barriers, fencing within the vacated area may create security concerns for the remaining water access. Okaloosa County Sheriff, city staff had a meeting with Okaloosa County Sheriff's Captain Charlie Nix, and he stated that putting up a fence or a barrier, including shrubbery, could create a vision impediment and safety issue at night for the rest of the water access. Even a picket fence could create blind spots. This would make security patrols more cumbersome. The second observation was to have the city provide streetlights along the roadway and at the end of Harbor Lane for additional safety and to light up the area. There's been a lot of conversation about people's security here. That speaks volumes coming from Captain Nix. Nobody's mentioned that. I wanted to mention that tonight. Sorry, I'm like trying to do this really quick. The LDC, Chapter 8 or Article 8, I can't remember how it says right-of-way protection. When you go from there, criteria number 4 was missed. The whole entire thing says vacation is not detrimental to the public interest. City ownership of the right-of-way is no longer necessary to accomplish any valid city purpose. That last sentence was missing, and that was not met as part of the criteria of the LPA and is not also in the package this evening. And let's see, if you go to your comp plan, Chapter 7, there are approximately 8 policies that specifically talk about maintaining parks in accordance to the level of service standards. There's a table with a footnote where it says the beach shoreline access standard is acceptable to the following shoreline areas: Gulf Shore right-of-way, Joe's Bayou. It's mentioned. Joe's Bayou is mentioned in that document. Policy 7116 talks about right-of-ways. Policy 7118 talks about distance to those residential neighborhoods near or abutting Indian Trail. Policy 71110 talks about improving existing access points to Joe's Bayou specifically, under-improved or unimproved. Policy 7123 talks about natural areas as to maintain and improve recreational opportunities for all residents, not one. Policy 7125 talks about site development shall occur in a manner that retains views to the shoreline areas for adjacent inland properties. And last but not least, Policy 7136 says that we should provide signage as a city to identify bayou access points. I hope I got it all in. Thank you.
Marcy? Marcy?
No applause, even though it's warranted. Good job, Marcy. Go ahead, Teresa.
Mayor. She was referencing Chapter 7 of the comp plan, is that correct?
Marcy, would you like to answer that?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Chapter 7 of the comp plan. Recreation and open space element. This element prepared pursuant to, excuse me, what is this? Microphone. Pursuant to...
Start from scratch to answer his question. Go ahead.
Chapter 7 is the recreation and open space element of the comp plan. This element prepared pursuant to Florida State Statute 163.31775E and required pursuant to Florida State Statute 163.31775G.
And which part of the application was not?
I just dropped that document, that page. There's one more sentence that was missing. Not being to the city public, help me out, somebody.
So you said number 4 on the applicant was not?
The criteria for number 4 was only listed in the LPA agenda and on your agenda as being vacation is not detrimental to the public interest, period. But the comp plan specifically goes on to say city ownership of right-of-way is no longer necessary to accomplish any valid city purpose.
Okay.
So the requirement that was stated in the LPA package and your package did not state that continuing sentence.
Okay, thank you.
Marcy,
Thank you.
can you provide that information to Ray, please?
Yeah.
You can't speed write that much information if you could.
No. I mean, I'll be happy to if you can.
Yeah, well, I'd like to.
chicken scratch.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anybody else? Sorry, I was just trying to get it under 3 minutes.
You did a great job. Thank you.
Sure.
Teresa?
Yeah. that
All
was
right,
it.
any further questions for Marcy at this time? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Teresa. I got a couple other people I saw raise their hand.
Teresa Abear, 716 Main Street. First of all, I was going to say exactly what Marcy did, so thank you, Marcy, for covering that this access should not have any public detriment. And I think you've all heard from the entire audience here, one way or the other. If you don't feel like this is a public detriment to give this man this right-of-way, it's definitely not the right thing to do. I'm pretty sure we can come up with a better driveway for this individual than giving him a part of a beach access, which we are dying desperately to get. We're buying more, trying to continue to increase our beach access. And being in charge of Parks and Recreation, every piece of park and recreation we can get for Destin is great for our homeowners, and it's great for our tourism. So please, let's not start something that might snowball if we give away this right of way. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Come on up. Press the button. Name and address.
Becky Pritchard, 145 Timber Court. I had a lot prepared here to say, but it's been said by a lot of people, so I won't repeat it. But I keep coming back to the original time that the applicant visited with City Council in February of 2018 because he wanted a fence. And he was told that the council could not provide that to him, and he was in the wrong arena. He needed to have vacation of right-of-way in order to put a fence. At the LPA meeting in 2018, I was under the impression that he knew at that time when he left that he could not build a fence until he had this right-of-way access vacated. However, in November of 2018, you walk down Harbor Boulevard, there's a double-wide, 6-foot-tall gate, there's a camera posted on a pole, there's ballards, there's a rope through the ballards, it's just accessed off. Now, I was curious why, after the 2018 LPA meeting, it was not brought before council. In the January 2020 LPA meeting, the applicant's counsel provided that answer, which I was very happy to know. And the quote is, his quote is, because of the public outcry, for lack of a better word, he elected not to pursue that and to pursue working with the city and Ms. Trammell to come up with what would be a supported smaller petition for a smaller vacation. So after he left the 2018 LPA meeting, he did not bring it to council because he wanted to work with the public, work with Ms. Trammell, and work with the city. However, in November of 2018, he put up the gates, he put up the ballards, he put the rope through. I don't really see how that's working with the city. He received notifications that he was in violation of code. He ignored them. I found in public records that there was a certified letter sent to him that revoked his permit. I don't see how that's working with the city. So I know there's been a lot of discussion about all the hoops that this gentleman has jumped through in order to legally get a right-of-way vacation. There's also been a lot of nefariousness that's gone along with that as well. I vote and ask you to vote no to this vacation of right-of-way. There are many other ways to accomplish what he wants in a fence. I agree to extend the road. Nobody is denying that he deserves access to his property with a driveway. He has a driveway. We might not like that it goes through the right-of-way, but he deserves that. We can live with that. We want unobstructed access just like we have right now, and that is not going to happen if he's given this vacation, because as soon as that happens, he'll do the gate application that is not done right now because he can't until he has the vacation.
Time's up.
Please vote no vacation.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. Come on up. And just for a heads up with everybody, before we go into the motion and voting stage, we're going to take a break. So we have people that have been sitting here a long time. Go ahead.
Mayor Jarvis and council members, my name is Ann Broker. I live at 4066 Indian Trail, and I vote no for the vacation. I do believe he deserves, just as anyone else, access to his property, but I don't think we should vacate the property to him. And this young lady, I agree with everything she just said.
All right, thank you very much. Next. Go ahead, sir. Take them when you get them.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Master Sergeant Jamil Osorio, 3882 Sandoon Court, Destin. 30 years retired from the Special Forces. I've done overseas security assessments of the embassies, ambassadors, and a lot of the embassy communities. So I'd like to propose and give you some background on that particular area that's considered a park, but it's not a park. Some issues with that area: it's a lane that it's covered on all sides. It harvests criminal activity, and when we do these assessments overseas and anywhere that we do these criminal activity assessments or potential for things to go wrong, especially in the dark, we use no emotional bias to it, sir. But what we've seen, the assessment that we've done over in Mr. Kruger's area, is that he should have access and a right-of-way to protect his family and also protect the neighborhood in that particular area. That area, especially after dark, it's a zone area where a lot of people with criminal intent, criminal activity, or potential harm to the neighbors can gather up and present a lot of problems, sir. So I just want to provide that, and I think Mr. Kruger's family and the family of that neighborhood deserve the right to protect themselves, provide security, and for the city as a return of what we've done in overseas assessments for security. Areas that are not controlled and managed are usually breeding grounds for criminal activity, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Yes, ma'am.
And clearly, there are issues down there. Mr. Kruger has provided images of different nefarious activity that's occurred. But when people are looking for areas to do something nefarious, for lack of a better word, don't they typically look for more than one way out so they're not trapped at the end?
Yes. Usually one way out whenever you have both of your sides clearly visible. So most of your streets through Destin, I think that's why Destin has a really good control on any crime. The problem in Destin is that there's a lot of transitional tourism. There's a lot of contractors that come through transitional tourism. So once somebody comes down that street, as we have seen it worldwide, in a big city and a small city, I worked in New York City for a couple of years, any place that has both sides covered, you don't have to worry about an exit side. Because by the time a police officer or a security personnel or a neighbor approaches somebody that may be doing some criminal activity, all they have to do is just leave the premises. Somebody would have to block that access way. But what you have is you have a perfect street and a perfect corner for bad things to happen.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, I can't say last one. As long as they keep raising their hands, they're coming. I'll get you next, sir. You cut in front of him, Carrie.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry.
But I just kind of point in that direction.
Carrie Harbaugher.
Sir, I'm just trying to work my way from that side to the center. I'm gonna start looking over the shoulders of the people, the staff. So anybody over there, just be patient, because apparently we're not done yet. Go ahead, ma'am.
Harbaugher, Spring Lane. First, I want to say how insulting it is that I stand up here and listen to people that we don't even know talk about how crime-ridden Destin is. Please move if that's the way you feel. We're not the ghetto. Secondly, I think what I heard here were permits were already expired before the gentleman bought the land, and the city has already used taxpayer dollars to improve the area. Let's make it a park.
We can't right now. Thanks, Carrie. I am correct about that, right? We can't make it a park. Go ahead, come on up. And I will work my way that way in a second. Who else wants to go next from the center of the room? Okay, you. Remember, it's okay to say what he said. I agree with everything he said, unless you got some new and enlightened thing to bring to us. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Matthew Trammell, 735 Planet Drive. So I, like many of the others that have said tonight, I'm still trying to figure out why exactly we're here. Do any of us on this council or in this room think we have enough beach access? Do we think we have enough access to natural areas? Do we think those areas will be critical for future generations, whether they be in your neighborhood or my neighborhood or that guy's neighborhood? We do not have enough access in enough natural areas. That's something we have to consider. You heard a lot about the comp plan. You heard a lot about clear spaces. You heard a lot about wide open areas. This is the comp plan that you spent how many years pushing forward? The action that you take tonight is going to set major precedent, not only for other right-of-ways that we may potentially vacate, but also how you interpret your comp plan. And as I don't remember who it was, but someone had said people are watching this. There are a lot of folks watching. There are a lot of developers, there are a lot of homeowners, there are a lot of consultants that are looking at all of this information that's coming out and saying, well, we have this comp plan, we have this new LDC, let's see how the city really interprets it. Where does the rubber hit the road? There's a lot of very good attorneys out there, and they're watching too, I'm sure. So we're talking about safety. Now, what we just heard the last gentleman talk about was safety of Mr. Kruger's property. I'm all for Mr. Kruger having access. I'm all for Mr. Kruger having a driveway. I'm all for Mr. Kruger being safe. That's what we all deserve as not only, citizens of Destin, but of the United States and just human beings. As you all know, I'm an engineer. The #1 canon of all licensed registered engineers is we must uphold the safety, health, and welfare of the public. That's not me. That's not Mr. Kruger. That's not you. That's the public, the entire public. So when you look at your parks, when you look at your roads, when you look at your bridges, they're all designed by engineers with one thing in mind: safety. So I came up with an idea. Why don't we go back and look at the option 1, 2, and 3? Mr. Bodie, can you throw up just the survey plot that Mr. Kruger had, the plot of the vacation? And I'll be very quick. I'm just trying to reference
He brings a valid point. I prevented others from doing that, Matt. So just go ahead and do it verbally.
Okay.
I know you can.
Sure. So I have a copy here. So at the end of his driveway, where the proposed gate and the wall and the fence, and that's what we're really here for. Once this is approved, the building we're not going to get an opportunity to provide public comment on the wall and the fence and the gate. That's what this is all about, is a wall and a fence and a gate. So if we do pave the driveway, which is option 1 and 2 and possibly 3 that you heard my mother speak to, if we pave the driveway, he will have that access. He can construct a gate along his own property. If we stripe that area, it will be clear as day that you are not supposed to park in that area. How do we assess parking in Crystal Beach? Enforcement, striping, lighting. Mr. Marler mentioned lighting. In 2018, we've not done anything. We're not increasing enforcement. We're not increasing any of these activities. Why are we taking such a drastic measure to vacate a piece of property when we really haven't done a good job of implementing our normal practices?
Thank you, sir.
Safety. Thank you.
I tell you what, I'm going to be fair to this part of the room, so sit tight. Sir, come on up. I don't want you to break your shoulder or get arthritis in your elbow. I feel your pain. Is there any way can we take a break? Yeah, we're going to have to, because I still saw 10 hands. After this gentleman speaks, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, thanks.
My bladder requires it. Go ahead, state your name and your address, sir.
Name's Ted Love, 3845 Indian Trail. So on the end of Main Street there, the last lot, Merino Acres. I think we started out this whole meeting, everybody, all you guys have already heard and seen the place we're talking about. Everybody's been down there at this point. Then we also know that the planning meeting, the LPA, they recommended approval several weeks ago. So you got all that information. So now we're bringing up all this other stuff all over again. So does that mean the LPA didn't do their job? So they recommended approval. I recommend approval for Mr. Kruger. He's not trying to steal anything. He's doing everything he can. I think we give him the courtesy, obviously, of this meeting, where we're going with this. and I understand everybody here, I don't have a yellow sign in my yard, so I'm not part of that particular group, but I do think we should give Mr. Kruger here and we are apparently giving him a good hearing. I think that's important, what we're doing. The right-of-way, the right-of-way is still going to be there. If we give him this little vacation, it's a partial vacation. It's not a vacation of the whole right-of-way. You guys have been there. You've seen it. And like I said, that's not 20 feet. I go down there, I walk my dog. There's plenty of room there. And if you need more room, move the bushes. But I think the option of paving down past his driveway, I don't think anybody here would really like that if it was paved, because that's really going to mess up your right-of-way for your dog walking and whatnot. You're going to have another piece of paved Destin. Right now, you can give a partial vacation of this easement. Doesn't cost the city anything. Some people aren't going to be happy, I don't think. I'll be happy. Because I think justice is done. We followed the law, and Mr. Kruger's got what he wanted. And again, there was a comment about being selfish. I'm not saying that, but I think Mr. Kruger deserves this. I think he did everything he could possibly do. If you try to build a house in Destin or any place, a lot of hoops you got to jump through. Sometimes the rules change. But in this case, I think he's done all he can do. Let's not kick this down the road. Let's make a decision. You guys, you've all seen it. You've all heard it. So it's time to take a break, I guess, huh?
Yes, sir. 5-minute break.
Thanks.
Thank you. I still saw a few hands of folks that still want to talk. Again, I want to remind everyone, if your position on this issue is the same that's already been verbalized, you can go ahead and share that you agree with the statements of those people. And that will speed up this process. We're getting to the point, I think this council would like to have open discussion amongst itself and actually make a decision. If you have something new that we haven't heard, then by all means, share that. So again, I'm going to be fair to my right, and I'm going to start there and I'll work my way back. If you've already spoken at this hearing, please refrain from raising your hand to speak again. That's not the purpose here. We'll have an opportunity at the tail end of this meeting for you to, the entire public can speak to any issue, including this hearing, after this portion of this has been accomplished. So is there anyone over on this side? I see a couple of hands. Let's go all the way in the back, and then Mr. Bagby, I'll catch you next. I couldn't see you through Mr. Bodie's head, so. And then, not insinuating that Mr. Bodie has a big head. Go ahead, state your name and begin.
Good evening. I'm Don Lichtefeld. I live at 3795 Indian Trail. My wife and I have always enjoyed visiting, and our 4 kids will go down to visit. And we are now looking forward to our grandkids doing likewise. I just want to state tonight that I agree, and I want to compliment the speakers asking for you to reject this vacation of property. I grew up on a small farm in southern Illinois, and twice there were 40 acres of land behind our property, and twice my dad allowed access to that land. But when ownership changed, then the land was still ours. So I ask that this be able to be used, but not vacated or given at this time. I thank you, and I thank all of you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Bagby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, Jim Bagby, 4709 Seastar Vista. I think most of you know I historically have opposed any vacations. I believe we need more public land in the city of Destin, not just at the beach, but and not less public land. So my history is fairly clear. But the issues that are being discussed tonight have transcended years, generations in this community. Reasonable access. Mr. Kruger, and I think everybody agrees, and I consider him a friend. I consider the Trammels a friend, Jim Wood a friend, all of y'all friends. He deserves reasonable access to his property. The public deserves reasonable access to Joe's Bayou. Everybody deserves the same reasonable access to what they want. I was a little concerned that the last line in the comp plan was left off because the public, there is a valid public use for that right-of-way there. And it shouldn't, in my mind, be vacated if there is, as the plan says, a valid public use. The other thing is it's an enforcement issue, and somebody talked about this. And we've spent years in this city talking about code enforcement and trying to beef it up. We sent code enforcement officers to get licensed where they could write parking tickets. We've done things all through the years to try to improve the law enforcement. We partnered with the sheriff's office, and you know, I always was critical, but I always enjoyed the support that they gave us. But it is a law enforcement issue. The Krugers have a right to expect safety. The public has a right to expect safety. So I would ask you to think maybe a little bit out of the box. How do you achieve both that use, that reasonable use, and that public safety? Maybe you do extend the road another 25 or 40 feet. If it's only going to cost $20,000 and we're talking about spending $40,000 or $80,000 on pickleball courts, you know, I think this might be a pretty good use of $20,000. And maybe you get a light at the end of that pavement, not down right on the edge of the water, but maybe between the end of the pavement and there. So when you illuminate it, usually those roaches, they look and they run for darkness. Because I've done safety assessments too of facilities overseas, and you're right. Unless those guys want to swim, they got one way out. I would also ask you, maybe you consider giving Mr. Kruger a variance or some kind of security consideration. Maybe you give him a little bit higher wall than is allowed. Maybe you give him a gate, and maybe you let him bump it out a couple of feet into that right of way. But there's a win-win here, and I trust y'all to find the balance and to use your wisdom and your judgment so that everybody wins in this, because I think that is available.
Thank you, Mr. Bagby. Else over there on the right side of the room? Seeing no hands, I'm not going to look back. Oh, just kidding. Come on up. That's the last time I'm looking over that way. Who's next from over that way? All right, forever hold your hands. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Kristen Rieger. I live at 790 Bayou Drive. I have lived in this Merino Acres for the majority of my life. I have enjoyed the right-of-way, park, beach access, whatever you want to call it, since I was very small. I did ride my bike down the hill, not off the dock, but I did ride my bike into the water off the hill. I want to speak to the safety issue, which I know you have all heard, but I just want to reiterate what Summer said about the lack of arrest in 5 years. There's not been an arrest down there in 5 years, and there has not been only 3 calls about, and those were parking. That was the sheriff's report. Also, I'd like to say that as far as it being a safety issue, that the way that if it's vacated, then he's able to build a wall and a fence, that obstructs the view to the actual steps down to the water. And I know that people should not be there after dark, but I think that predators do not limit their behavior to after hours. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anyone here in the center row? Go ahead, sir, in the back. And I'll get you next, Guy. And Jim, I'll get you after. You go after Guy.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Bill Kilpatrick. I live at 4081 Indian Bayou North, which is not an Indian Bayou. It's at the end of Indian Trail. I have to tell the pizza guy that every time he delivers to me, but I just wanted to say, you know, thank you. I know you guys don't do it for the pay, but I've listened patiently to both sides, and I think what Mr. Kruger is asking for is very reasonable under the circumstances. I've listened to both sides, and all the objections seem to be based around we're losing access to this, and that just doesn't appear to be the case at all. He's still providing access. Some people have said, why does he need a 30-foot wide driveway? My driveway's not that long. Well, the reason he needs the south 30 feet, it's real obvious if you just look at the picture, is because the road's up that high. So he needs 30 feet to get his driveway up to connect to the road. The other thing, everybody talking about, he should have reasonable access. Of course, I think he has access now. His problem is everybody's parking on his access and blocking his way of ingress and egress, of getting in and out of his access. So it doesn't seem to me like what he's asking for is at all unreasonable. It's not going to set a precedent of all of a sudden taking beachfront property or creating less of it, or some way the next guy's going to come in and say, hey, you did it for that guy, now, I need you to do it for me. So I just, want to thank you and just say, I'm one of the people that does think what he's asking for is absolutely reasonable under the circumstances, and I think you should grant it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Guy, and I'll get you after him.
Honorable Mayor and Honorable Councilmen, I'm Guy Tadlock. I live on Noriego. Yeah, I've been listening to this, and not to repeat, there's been a lot of really good discussions on both sides. I agree with Mr. Bagby on some of the stuff that he said, as well as Mr. Trammell, and quite frankly, I understand Mr. Kruger and his wife's situation. Living on waterfront property sometimes can be kind of testing. But
I was really hopeful that there could be a solution to this without a vacation. And I don't want to repeat some of the earlier stuff that was said. I was going to mention the comp plan. Ms. Bell did a fine job of doing that. One thing that I wanted to mention was that you need to also give some consideration that I think there's 3 or 4 similar lots to this on Joe's Bayou now. Similar situations, 60-foot right-of-ways. And I think there's one in the harbor. So I don't know how you treat this, or if you agree with this, if you're setting a precedence or what. But it certainly, to me, might give some weight to looking and see if there's a possible solution without vacation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tadlock. Sir.
Evening, guys. Nate Beard, 322 Sterling Court. I've just come to this recently, listened to the last month or two, and I've actually used that access point a couple times via boat, and I'm sympathetic to everybody in the room on both sides of this. I can understand both sides of the situation. I understand guys that are within walking distance of this access point. Change is difficult. Human nature, anytime change, even when change is good, sometimes it's difficult to understand that. And then with Mr. Kruger, the options that are available to him, I think that this is really the only reasonable option that he has, and therefore I'm in support of it. Around the turning radius concerns, being an engineer, I was once a traffic engineer, currently licensed in 28 or 30 states currently. There are requirements for turning radiuses, and I don't think that a 12-foot driveway that takes a 90-degree angle can actually accommodate an emergency vehicle without increasing that width. So I don't think they're asking for a 30-foot driveway, which I think was indicated a couple times earlier tonight. What they're actually requesting is a reasonable driveway. I don't know if it's 10 or 12 feet, but able to accommodate those turning radiuses. The other part is access to this water or this beach. The time that I have used that walkway, it's a very steep access, and there's only about 4 foot of it or so if you're walking up those stepways. So the precedence that there's a 20-foot wide swath or a 30-foot swath all the way down to the waterway, it does create a bottleneck as you get closer to the water. I think you need to take that into consideration as well, that you're not going to be fully utilizing that entire 30-foot width all the way down to the water access, because it obviously pinches down, and it's difficult for most to walk up and down it. I'm in support of Kruger. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Get you, ma'am, and then I'll get you, and then I'll get you.
My name is Amanda Belcher. I live at 6 Pine Ridge Trace. The Okaloosa County property appraiser records show Mr. Kruger owns Safe Harbor Part Lot 8 and partial vacation right-of-way of north of partial. I'm not sure why, but it needs to be removed. He does not own it. For records, I would like to put my cease and desist letter on file that I got from his attorney. Also, realtors in this area use the selling point to be able to say that if you live in this property area, in this neighborhood, you have access to this water. I asked the council to extend the road 40 feet, then Mr. Kruger can connect the driveway to the road. If he needs a gate, my opinion, it should be on his existing property as all the owners of Destin. I asked the council to vote no for partial vacation of right-of-way for this property and to make a code not to vacate any other right-of-way property in Destin. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Come on up.
Ma'am, where you said that the property description included the right-of-way, is that property appraiser's
Come back up to
survey?
the microphone so they can go on the public record. Go ahead, Ms. Ramswell, ask that again.
Yes, it is, and I have a copy of it.
I can pull it up. I just wanted to clarify
Okay,
that
I was
that's
going
where
to give it to
located.
the gentleman so y'all can
Perfect.
all have a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you much. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Hi, my name is Jackie Gibson. I live at 780 Bayou Drive. I agree with Mark here, everything he said. I read the article in Where TV, Destin Log, and a mention in New York Times regarding we need prime property, waterfront public property. So I won't get into that any further. So Mr. Kruger purchased his land. When you purchase land, you have a survey done. Okay, so he was not happy with his survey, so we gave him an easement to his property. Beautiful, he has a beautiful driveway now. Okay, he's not happy with that, so now he wants the right-of-way. He wants you to give him that property so he can put a fence around. All right, excuse my drawing, I just wanted to show you something. His attorney said he needs reasonable access. Okay, now come up here so y'all can see. Okay, right now he has. Okay. All right. Right now he has a gate right here on his property. Okay. He's saying that people are parking here, so he needs to move the gate out here. It stands to reason if people are coming up and parking in his driveway, if he puts a gate here, they're just going to park here, so he's still going to be blocked in. Okay, which is going to make it more cumbersome for him because he's going to have to get out of his car and walk around and see if anybody's at the park now. Whereas right now, with no gate, he can look out and open, hey, can you move your car? I vote no right away. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir? Unfortunately, you're behind the podium, but I did see your hand, so I'll get you next. You're kind
Good evening. You hear me? My name is Ryder Kenny. I live at 809 Jupiter Street. My wife and I purchased that property this summer, and one of the selling points was the fact that we were going to have this beach access. I'm not from this area. I just retired from the military after 20 years, and I don't know, the fellows up here talking about crime and being able to analyze things. Like, I've been to Afghanistan and Iraq. Harbor Lane is nothing like those places. I'm not really sure where that was going, but as far as a safety issue is concerned, I mean, we all live in this town. I mean, there are areas that might be a little bit seedier than others. That is not one of them. The major reason I'm up here is that ultimately in this, the LPA determined item 2020-2111, the proposed vacation is not detrimental to the public interest. I think we all can see by being here tonight that it must be in the detriment of the public interest because it seems like an awful lot of the public is concerned and doesn't want this property to be vacated. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am. I apologize for not seeing you behind that big piece of wood.
I'm sorry?
I said I apologize for not seeing you behind that big piece of wood. Go ahead.
I don't mind being last. My name is Jan Rappert.
Jan, I hope you are last.
I live at 707 Main Street, and I just recently moved back to Destin. I lived here from 1978 to 1990. I had to leave to go back to get a better job, but I've been trying to get back for over 30 years. I built a brand new home on Main Street, and I know the trials and tribulations of building a new home with the setbacks because my lot was very narrow and thin. I found out about this per se park a couple years ago when I was actually trying to buy a sofa from a lady that lives in this area, and not from her, but from where she worked. And she told me about this real pretty park. And I thought it was on Main Street, but then I found out it was in Merino Acres down Bayou Drive. Back in the 1980s, I had friends that their parents lived on Mars Street. I'd never been to that area, but I lived on the other side of Joe's Bayou. And I thought it was a great, beautiful neighborhood, and it still is. I think it's prettier than Indian Bayou. It's just a very spread out, beautiful neighborhood. And you say it's not a park, but it's an area where people have gone to play. They've raised their children, their grandchildren, and maybe even their great-grandchildren. I haven't had the opportunity of doing that yet, but I plan on it. I think Destin should not give up any land. The man, we're not trying to keep him from getting to his property. I lived on acreage in Alabama, and I had right-of-ways that other people used on my property. I didn't block it. I didn't keep them from using it. You don't own a right-of-way. We want him to have a right-of-way, but we want him to have it the right way. Don't give him the land. We want him to be able to use his property, but don't squeeze us out. We want to be able to use it too. Also, many people, and I was one, received a letter from Mr. Kruger's attorney for a cease and desist. And I want this on public record. This was about petitions, whatever, threatening me. I don't appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, just send that to Ray. Thank you very much. All right. At this time, after much public comment, we're going to close this portion of the hearing. Oh, got one more? Come on up, Jason. Ann wants to speak? Okay. All right, go ahead, sir.
Jason Klosterman, 1014 Airport Road. It's probably good I go ahead and state that I'm also a member of the LPA, and that this came before us a couple weeks ago. I'm here tonight mostly. I got a little hung up. When they gave us this application, at first I kind of felt like we were somewhat being directed to stay inside a box by staff here, because we have a few guidelines to go by. And number 4, where it says that what is and isn't a detriment to the public. So I think that's kind of up to interpretation. I think each one of y'all are going to have to interpret that for yourself and how you feel. I voted no on this vacation, so I also felt that maybe it was necessary I show up tonight and maybe address council and explain why. And in that time since then, I've been back by this property and thought about it a lot. I believe they definitely deserve access to their property. I don't think anybody denies that whatsoever. Me personally, I think what was overwhelming for me that made me decide to vote no was the fact that I don't think all these folks would be here tonight. I mean, I was here earlier than left, went home, ate dinner, and came back. And I don't think, I don't think they would be here tonight spending their time to sit here if they didn't feel it was a detriment. And the sheer amount of people that continue to show up and talk about this really told me that this isn't the option. He definitely deserves something. His family definitely deserves something. They definitely deserve access to the property. But I think we can do better than this. Maybe that's extending this road another 40 feet. I think you need to stop and think about what kind of precedent we could set. So if we vacate this and set a precedent, there could be and probably will be a lot of other properties around Destin that could challenge the same issue. That alone, though, shouldn't stop him from having access to his property and access that is not being blocked by people parking in front of it. This is definitely a hot topic, but I don't think that this is a better solution, and I think that you can do better than this. The other thing I wanted to address, because it came up tonight, is actually why I came back up here, because I was sitting at home eating dinner. Somebody got up here earlier and said that there was a conflict of interest for a voting member of the LPA. And it's definitely something that I want looked into. Personally, because I certainly don't want to be grouped into, well, somebody on the LPA had a conflict of interest. And Mayor, you spoke to how we got here earlier. How we got here does matter. It absolutely matters how we got here. And I certainly at any point in time don't want anybody or any of our residents in the city to think that the only reason we got here was because somebody had a conflict of interest. Certainly don't think that's a message to send. I also don't think anybody should be accused without proof by all means. But I certainly myself would like that looked into.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, Council.
So noted, Jason. Thank you so much. Mr. Shire, Miss Ann, I don't care which one comes up. Now, you only get 3 minutes each, so you may want to split up. All right. Well, Bill, I've never known you to be a man of few words, so you only got 3 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, that's right. I was a few words in. We're just here to show that we are in favor of extending the road, but we are not in favor of providing for a vacation of right-of-way. And that's primarily what they do. Did we say we live at 812 Jupiter Street? We've lived in Destin a few years. I don't have many more left, but I would like for it to, you know, for Destin to keep what they can keep. And, you know, he definitely deserves to have access to the property, but that's all I got to say. And
Thanks,
I am
sir.
the last one. Nobody's coming behind me.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'm closing this portion of the hearing. Kyle?
Ms. Kopp, do you have anything else?
Does council have any questions for me?
Ms. Kopp, I have a question. I know we talked earlier about some of the sections of the comp plan in regards to violating. Those don't apply to right-of-ways, do they?
No, the comprehensive plan policy that referenced parks wouldn't apply because this is not legally a park. The comprehensive plan policy that's referenced in the staff report dealing with the shoreline is not violated because the shoreline is not affected by the requested vacate. And staff determined that this portion of the right-of-way is 0.05 acres. It's about half of a tenth of an acre. So when staff looked at the comp plan policies, they also determined that this would not be something that would be violative. So that is why they are recommending approval.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Overdeer?
I guess I've got another question for Ms. Kopp. I know that you've been involved in the negotiation between the various parties. Was this option of us extending the road and having him just put his gate where he can come all the way down through the right-of-way, and then where his property line is, that's where his driveway would start, and that's where the gate would go? Was that option ever discussed?
Mr. Kruger has the right to ask for what he's asking for. So we cannot negotiate with anyone outside of what he's asking for. So that was not something I could talk about with members of the public. I did meet with them and try to address some of the concerns, but they felt that they needed to come to council and express them as they have.
Mr. Marler?
Thank you, and please forgive my voice. I've got a little bit of laryngitis. The issue basically is he needs unrestricted ingress and egress to his property. From what I see from the pictures and also from what I see yesterday, and Mr. Green, thank you for that, at least sort of agreeing with me on that one point that we had our little intense fellowship on yesterday. And enlightened me a little bit on a lot of things. Mr. Kruger deserves the ingress and egress to his property. Now, how we get there? We can extend the road, yes, we can do that, which takes away some of what everybody keeps calling a park. It's not a park, it's right-of-way. Now, we put a bench out there, we put a table out there to be courteous and figuring out what to do until this time, you know. And everybody talks about the beach. I walked down that little stairway. That's not really a beach, it's just a little stairway that needs to be repaired, by the way. City staff will get with you on that later. There is ingress and egress to that stretch of land. What Mr. Kruger was doing when he fenced off that area was to basically give himself that privacy that he deserves to get in and out of his driveway. What I saw was some posts that had originally had some rope in it, and that was the fence. And the gate, I didn't see the gate. I saw what was left of the gate post, but I didn't see the gate. Now, I was out there yesterday, and I spoke with the Krugers, and I also talked with Mr. Green, and I also spoke with several other people over the past couple of months. I don't like giving away right-of-way any more than anybody else does, but let's take it one step further. What if I went and blocked off and parked in your driveway wherever you live because there was a little stretch of land right next door that was public and I could walk through it? You wouldn't like that, and you'd try to have me towed. And that's basically what's happening over there. We have a gentleman who's finally built a piece of, took a piece of land that probably may be one of the last pieces that's there and built on it. Yes, it's a dead end road. Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp started out as a dead end road to First Street. First Street did not even go to Benning Drive when I was growing up. It dead end at the late Curtis Williams' house, or where his parents lived. That's where it did end. We didn't have a problem back then. The problem exists is it's not a park. I like the fact that people can use it as an access to get to Joe's Bayou, but it's not a park. So how do we fix this? We can put no parking signs up there and pray that everybody reads and does what they're supposed to do. We can put big flashing lights. I don't know what else we can do. The Krugers deserve to have a space that they can be protected in to get in and out of their property. How do we get there? I didn't, other than the option of paving, I didn't hear anybody say or come up with another solution. So depending on what happens in the next,
Karen, can I interject just a second?
Yes.
We're not done with our total presentation, or we're not deliberating yet. So
Okay.
could you just hold your thoughts?
Sure.
And save them, and I'll recognize you, and
Sure.
you can finish your thoughts. So we got to finish the quasi-judicial portion of this, okay? Thank you, sir.
All right, counsel, if you have any more questions for Ms. Kopp and staff at this time, that'd be the appropriate.
Ms. Kopp, so this is the first hearing. Other than what the staff has recommended after hearing testimony, is there a process or an alternative to present or think about some other a compromise or position that could try to be worked out? Because I understand that we're here today because of the request that was made by the property owner. Is there any alternative type process that we could get to before we get to the second hearing?
Just to clarify, this isn't the first hearing, it's the second,
It is
if you include
I
LPA.
stand corrected.
So if you're asking, I'm not sure what you're asking, is there another code process, or could we go try to negotiate something?
I'm looking for a soft place to land in my mind, so I'm asking you as our land use attorney,
Yeah,
is there a process for us to consider?
Mr. Kruger has an application pending. He has the right to a response via approval or denial. Could the parties negotiate on their own outside of the city or with the city? Sure. It's been suggested, but I'm not sure that would be productive based on the discussions I've heard so far, but it's certainly an option.
This is the here and now then? Okay, got it. Kyle?
If there are no more questions go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't see that till just now. Go ahead, Mr. Braden.
Why did staff not one of the recommendations be to extend the asphalt on down in the right-of-way, what it was designed for, another 45 feet to give access to this property? Why is that not an option?
Again, Mr. Kruger made the application. It wasn't for staff to create what he is applying for. This is what Mr. Kruger is asking for. But I can defer to staff if they have anything to add beyond that. No, they don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braden. Mr. Bowman.
If there are no further questions from council to staff and Ms. Kopp, then I would turn it back over to Mr. Ketchersid.
He's the attorney for the plaintiff here, and this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, so he has the podium.
I, however, will be very brief. I have just a few points that need addressed, and they're based on different things that have been brought or said to you tonight that I feel deserve an address. First of all these allegations about cameras in the right-of-way. As we sit here tonight, there are no cameras in the right-of-way. There are cameras on Mr. Kruger's property, which he has every right under the law to have there. There are no cameras in the right-of-way. Number Two, which is very important, is that there have been all of these allegations about a 20-foot driveway. There is not even a proposal for a 20-foot driveway. And I brought back up the survey because the only person in this room that somewhat correctly addressed the proposal was Mr. Kilpatrick when he spoke. The blacktop stops on Harbor Lane where the proposed vacate starts. That the driveway is, well, it's actually not even the driveway, but the piece of property requesting to be vacated is 14.7 feet. It is not 20 feet, and the driveway is certainly not 20 feet. The driveway is actually going to be about 12 feet because code requires space on both sides of the driveway. And let's talk about this fence and gate, which is really why everybody's here tonight. They don't want a fence and a gate. Number one, if this vacate is approved tonight, partial vacation, Mr. Kruger still has to go through permitting to build any gate or fence. Tonight's approval, if you approve this, does not give him the right to put in a gate or a fence without